toes and fingers you're supposed to have.
You ain't wearing glasses yet.
Let's call the Finance Committee with full council participation to order. First item on our agenda is public comment. I don't see anybody from the public, so if it's okay with everybody, I'm going to move number 5 up and make it 2A. Since Mr. Rehnquist is here, we'll let him present what he's going to present, and then we'll go back to the agenda. So, Mr. Rehnquist, please.
Thank you, Councilmember Anderson, members of the committee, and of course members of the City Council and guests. The EDC, by its own joint powers agreement with the city and county, requires itself to make a presentation to the city and the county and ask for approval of our levy and our budget. The EDC's levy for the last 5 years has been at $455,000, and we have not had any increases, though we've had small but incremental increases in the budget over that period of time. And what we've done is balance our budget through use of the EDC's non-designated reserve fund. This is it uses the taxpayers' money wisely, but it can be a dangerous practice in the fact that someday that undesignated reserve fund will run out. So this year, my recommendation to the EDC's Joint Powers Board was to change our levy from $455 to $477,750. That represents percentage-wise a 5% increase, dollar-wise $22,750. And my reasoning for doing that was to reduce the dependence on the EDC's reserve fund to balance our budget, which this year is $46,082, and based with the increase in levy, if approved, it would be we'd still be using the reserve fund, but down to $23,332. Now, Mr. Chair, the EDC is endeavoring to have no budget increase, and this year we have, this coming year, we have our $35,000 pledge that the EDC has made to the Railroad Y project, which I predict will pass by the federal government, and we will get these funds. Also, as you know, by year end, I should no longer be in this position, and hopefully a replacement will be on board. I wanted I put in the budget a potential 5% increase for my job. Gene Spalding has left and taken a job in the private sector, so I wanted the board to have some flexibility. I scheduled a 5% increase for Gene's job. And Connie Schmall has done just a flat outstanding job, and I've scheduled put in preliminarily a 5% increase for her job. We've allowed, of course, FICA and the PERA will change incrementally, and we don't know where our health insurance is going to be next year. For the sake of just budgetary purposes, we allocated a $100 a month increase, though I don't think it'd be that much. That'll come to around $22,000, meaning the EDC budget. If we don't find places to economize, it would be up to as much as $55,000 for this coming year. My suggestion to this board, since our budgetary process for this year for the EDC is somewhat been delayed, due to actually, we had originally thought that my replacement might be on board much sooner than what it appears that it will happen. I'm suggesting to the committee and to the council that the EDC come in with its approval of the $477,750 for the reserves, and that preliminarily the budget will stay the same. $522,981. I'm going to suggest that $35,000 be taken out of EDC reserves, since that was a one-time non-budgetary item in my estimation, and that we find $20,000 to $22,000 of economies to make up for the rest of those figures. So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, the city council, guests, I'm recommending a 5% increase. I know percentage-wise that sounds large, but it's $22,750, and it really comes out to 1% a year for the last 5 years. And my initial recommendation is that there be no change to the overall EDC budget, and that if there were to be a change, the EDC would come back and justify that increase to this body later this fall. I stand ready for questions.
Questions? I'll just make one comment, and that's that the Joint Powers Board hasn't met and talked about this at all, but what you have submitted to the county, the increased levy, be through action of the Operations Board?
Correct.
Okay. Questions? Okay. I'm not seeing that we have any questions. So the action that we are asking of this full body is approval of your budget, actually, and the proposed levy. So, and then you added the caveat that if things were to change, you would come back and advise us of that.
Of course, Councilmember Anderson, the levy may not change. I cannot change.
Can't go
well,
up. It
short
can't
of
go
a congressional action. I mean, but it just cannot change. It is possible. It's going to be very difficult to keep the budget at that figure. But I think anything over that 522,981 would have to be, we'd have to bring it back for consideration by this body.
Okay. Would we like to make? Yes.
477, 750?
And the budget amount of 522,981.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion. Geez, you're all by yourself over that. This.
Pretty lonely.
All right. So we all vote.
Yep.
Even our lonely stranger over there. So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Thank you, Mr. Rehnquist.
Thank you. Let it be duly noted that was one of my shorter appearances
certainly was.
before this.
And we thank you very much.
I can't tell you how appreciative we are. All right. Let's get back to the agenda and look at the local option sales tax state audit.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, I've informed you earlier, and maybe summarize it for our viewing audience, but on September 3rd, the state of Minnesota Sales and Use Tax Division notified the city that they have completed about a 3-year audit on a firm in our city, and that there was a rebate due them that was rather large, and they were kind enough to call us and give us a heads up that the state of Minnesota would like their money back about a year from now in the tune of $159,000. There's always small audits on small firms all the way through about September 1st of next year. Basically, the city has 3 projects that we're using local option sales tax money for. Wilmer Avenue Railroad crossing, which is completed but not all the paperwork. The Western Interceptor, as you know, went from north of Highway 12 through the industrial park down to the connection point of 30th Street and 30th Avenue in Wilmer Township. Mathematically, we would probably find the total linear feet of that project, and that portion that went through the industrial park could be paid out of local option sales tax. Then we also have the industrial park street and utility project. R&R Excavating got the contract in the tune of $3.6 million. We've had 2 change orders, about $6,000 each. And as you know, change orders come in near the end of the project, which is due about October 31st. So at this point, we cannot tell you if we have funds available to make that payment. We believe we have about $140,000 that we haven't committed, but we don't want to assure the council that we have it. We don't want to alarm you that we don't have it. At this point, we just have to wait until these projects are done, and then we can tell you, and it's probably near Christmas, of what we have that would be due and payable September 1st, 2016.
Couple comments. First of all, I think we need to understand that the city has done nothing wrong. There's nothing that the city has done. Somebody has overpaid for whatever was the reason. Now, my other question is, are they going to audit any other firms? I mean, might this 159 go to something big?
Ms. Demko did not indicate that there were any large firms, and she said the word small adjustments may still be made to other firms. It terminates about 3.5 years after the fact because they do 3-year audits on firms.
Okay.
And so we finished that in December 31, 2012, so roughly March 31, 2013 was our last payment. We always hoped everything would be fairly balanced and small audits were easy to adjust to. This was rather large.
Mm-hmm. My other question is this is payable in 16. Do we need to make any sort of an entry in the 16 budget, or are you pretty sure that we'll get it out of the local option sales tax that wasn't spent on the 3 projects that you identified?
I can't guarantee any confidence on either one of those procedures, but if the finance director wants to jump in and make a statement.
Mr. Chairman, the comments I would make are similar to what Mr. Halliday had as far as the timing on the issue, and that it would be best to wait until we are at least through the construction period to know where we're going to be at on the projects. 2 of the projects are primarily completed, that being the railroad crossing on Wilmer Avenue and the Western Interceptor. It's just some of the funding mechanisms. I know there has to be some final drawdowns on the PFA funding for the Western Interceptor and some reconciliation with the county and BNSF for that project. The industrial park, we've had some conversations with engineering as far as where we're at there, and the $140,000 that Mr. Halliday alluded to is the difference between what was budgeted, which was the total remaining amount of the local option sales tax, and the contracted amounts for both the construction and the engineering. So it would be my recommendation to wait at this point. If the council wants to make entries into the 16 budget, you would be able to do that at your December 1st meeting in December when you adopt the 16 budget.
Okay. Questions? Councilmember Nelson?
It might be helpful to have the documentation that we had when we were reviewing the local option sales tax for 2015 to review what was left in there and with some of those figures that we talked about, because I thought we had spent it all. I thought we were actually over and had to make an adjustment because the money wasn't in the local option sales tax. So it'd be interesting to see that. And then the second part of that, do we have any obligation? Is our city attorney involved in this, or is anything we need to be doing in regards to the audit?
The first item, as far as the adjustments for the industrial park, there was an adjustment in November, a budgetary adjustment, where some additional funds were allocated to the project. In regards to the city attorney, I've had no correspondence with the city attorney. The audit itself is an audit, a sales tax audit of a company. It has nothing to do with the city as far as any kind of additional audits or auditing at this point.
I thought the information we got indicated that we were still in an auditing phase, that they were still auditing the city. Did I read that wrong?
They're not auditing the city. All businesses that pay to the state have to keep their records open for 3 years, subject to their audits.
Okay.
And that's winding down at the end of 2015 would be the end of 3 years when they last paid our local option sales tax. And some of those audits could go another half year into 16 to finish the 2015 year. But that's all they'd have to open records are. And I trust that's all they can backtrack for their errors. they found errors that were 7, 8 years back, I mean, they're not going to deal with them. It's a 3-year period. So that's why we're vulnerable here at the close of one of our local option sales tax.
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Nelson, we certainly can include as part of all the information when we come back to update the committee on where the dollars will come from, or if there are dollars available, the complete history of the local option sales tax. That report is still in file, so that's no problem.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just follow up on it, because the way I read, I think in Kevin's memo, that I felt like the city was being audited too, but that's incorrect assumption. It's just.
Incorrect.
Okay, so we're fine. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It says in there that they are continuing the audit for the city of Wilmer local option sales tax. That's what it states.
Yeah, okay.
It's not the city, it's for the local option sales tax.
Okay, so at this point, Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whatever company's involved here, what did they do? Or tax something that wasn't taxable, or what's?
Steve, go ahead, or Kevin.
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Fagerly, they were totally mum on the whole thing and couldn't divulge one fact. No name, no process.
So that money that we would pay back, does that go back to the company then, or?
Well, that's an excellent question. We talked about that up here. So if I paid that tax as a citizen, and we give it to the state, and the state gives it to the company, or takes it off from future payments, does the company ever give it back to me because I overpaid? And I don't see that happening. But we can't get details from the State Department of Revenue.
That's fine.
Okay, Councilmember Nelson.
You like that?
So back to, so we have no liability if we didn't notify someone or we did something wrong, do we have some liability? I guess that's where I was trying to go with the way you sent it out in the other one, in your weekly report. I guess I'm still curious. We haven't done anything wrong, so we just have to wait to see what they come up with, or?
Well, that is correct. At the end of each quarter for all 7 years, we would get a payment, and they would withhold like 5%. I forget what their fee is. And they may make adjustments all those quarters and all those audits that we are doing. But when we terminate it, they have 3 more years to do audits for those companies, and they found a company with large sales that were incorrect. And they had paid us.
Okay. I think we're good on that. We'll keep our eye on it. You'll keep us posted if that number goes up or down, and then in December, we'll hopefully have some resolution. All right. We'll take that for information only. And then we'll talk about this, we've titled it 12/31/14 City of Wilmer Financial Statements. Steve, would you like to?
Mr. Chairman, included in your packet is a copy of a letter received from the State Auditor's Office to the Mayor, Senator Coonan, Representative Baker, and City Clerk Interim Administrator Halliday, referencing the 2014 financial statement requirements. As I had outlined in the committee action form, the electronic, there's two reports that need to be filed with the State Auditor's Office. One is an electronic version that is done on their website, and then there is a secondary report that is the actual book that everybody gets annually, and that can be done electronically too. The process that we have is that the municipal utilities and Rice Hospital, both component units of the city, submit their numbers to us, and then we take those and incorporate them into the overall comprehensive annual financial report of the city. The electronic format was done in June 25th. It met the June 30th deadline as outlined in the letter. The follow-up report is being compiled as we speak. I've had conversations with the city auditor as well as the State Auditor's Office. I had a phone conversation with Representative Baker this morning. We have, in conversations with the State Auditor's Office, worked out schedules so that the city's secondary requirement of the actual booklet will be met. Our goal is to get it out this week, no later than the 25th. We've had conversations with the city auditor to schedule them for the September 28th finance meeting to answer any additional follow-up questions, as well as update to the council. As mentioned in the committee action form, we will copy everybody that was copied on the letter, as well as the full council, when that report is filed. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Councilmember Nelson?
Has this happened before?
We have, the last couple years, had issues with the secondary report. Some of the causes of that are staffing issues, not only citywide, but finance has not been immune to those issues as well. In the last 2.5 years, we've had 5 employees in one position. Of that 2.5 years, we've had, of that 2.5 years, 1 year where we have been vacant. 1 year of that 2.5, we've been short 1 staff member. So it has been, the last couple of years, we've run into some issues with it. We have had conversations since this letter with both the utilities and Rice Hospital, where we would like to have their reports by no later than April 30th. That would give us time to incorporate them into our numbers and still have our auditors be able to review it and get the report compiled and get it along with the written report, along with the electronic version by the September 30th date.
Go
I
ahead.
I have a couple of concerns with that, just from, I mean, the email from June 25th says that the city is asking for a 45 to 60-day extension, which is past that. I mean, we're past that. So I think the other concern that I have is if this has been repeated. I think the council has asked multiple times if we're able to get the work done, and we keep hearing that the work is getting done. And obviously, it's not. You know, is the auditor responsible for this? Is it the staff that's responsible for this? You know, I guess the letter's pretty formal. It's a lot of money. Are we not getting the job done somehow, that we need help to bring somebody in to make sure these things are done? Or I guess I just have a concern, and I'm, you know, I hear what you're saying, but you know, if it's a pattern that we've had, I think we're responsible for this. So a concern in September 28th, the cutoff's September 30th. I just am concerned and I guess frustrated with the information and the fact that we're not getting it done.
If I can intercede here a little bit, it sounds like, you know, I too would have a concern why this continues to happen. Now, you've suggested you're making some contacts with Rice and with the utilities and with the auditing firm. Can you give us some sort of assurance that next year we'll be compliant?
I can assure you, with all factors considered, if there are staff changes in my office and the city is taking positions of different things that may affect staffing in my office, it would have a major impact. But that does not, with the conversations and the schedules that are being discussed at this point, I would assure you that those reports will be in by June 30th of next year.
Okay, I think that's reasonable. Councilmember Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate Councilman Nelson's concerns, and I appreciate Mr. Wilkins' response, and I understand about, you know, staff shortages, but we're talking $4.5 million of LGA funds. Regardless of staffing, it seems to me that, you know, that should get priority over just about everything else. I mean, it's, you know, we would be, I don't know if the state's ever withheld a city's LGA funds, because, I mean, I would think, you know, maybe while we get these letters telling us they might, I would find it hard to believe that they would, but you know, there's always a first time, and that kind of the amount of funds there, we'd be dead in the water. No question about it. Services would come to a screeching halt, so that's my concern.
Councilmember Nelson?
I'd like to hear from our auditor. If, you know, if we aren't providing the information to get it done, and I guess the other part that I'd like to hear from the auditor is between now and the end of September, I'd like to hear that we're making progress and that things are going okay. I don't know that we can wait till September 28th to know that it's done. You know, we should be able to get some sort of emails or something as progress is being made, or if there's a reason it can't be done. And I guess I would request that we get some updates, and also when the auditor comes, that they let us know why it hasn't been done.
Steve? Just a minute. Can you respond to that?
Yes, including in our conversation, I mentioned to the auditor to possibly, they would certainly welcome to come tonight. I guess my comments as far as what my conversation was with the auditor, I certainly can do a follow-up and do emails on top of what I had informed the committee of what our discussions have been.
I want to clarify my own mind. You're saying it will be submitted to the state by the 25th, and we will get it for information on the 28th?
That is the fallback date of the 25th. Our goal and direction was to get it out by the end of the week.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Christensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Whoa.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair, you're sitting in the chair. It's been a long Monday. My comment is I have full faith in staff to do the right thing, and then he's assuring us it's going to get done, it's going to get done. I don't think we need to sit here and blame anybody. But I would like to know who has the final sign-off on it. Does it go through just the finance, or does the administrator sign off on it? And does that typically happen on the June 25th? Or do we submit it late with nobody signing off on it? Or isn't there a final sign-off? Somebody signs off on it and sends it to the state?
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Christensen, the forms are signed off by the finance director.
Okay, yourself?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it's on your schedule every year, pretty much?
That's correct.
Okay, once again, I have full faith in our staff to do the right thing, and I don't think we need to be putting blame anywhere. It'll get done.
Okay. It was scary to see and read that. We have assurance that next year will be a different story, and I think, just to add to that, if it looks like you're having a problem, you know, please let us know. I don't know how we're going to help, but let us know that there's a problem so that, you know, we're in tune with that. Anything else? Oh.
Mr. Chairman, and those requirements of submitting to our office, we work closely with the utilities in Rice Hospital, and they've worked very well with us in the past. One thing that one has to remember is that they have to take their numbers before their boards before they submit them to us. But we will work together and get that schedule moved up.
Councilmember Nelson?
Just another comment. Is there some sort of checks and balances that we should have when it comes to dates? I mean, this was not done in June, and now it's September, and it's the first we're hearing of it. So I'm just wondering if Finance Committee or someone should have some checks and balances on things that need to be done. If this isn't the first time it's happened, it's the first time I think this council's heard about it. So I'm just questioning, you know, the letter was pretty official. And I do think we need to be aware.
We do. I agree. We need to be made aware if there's going to, especially if there's going to be a problem. Okay. Anything else on that? All right. Let's move into the meat of the issue. We're going to talk about this afternoon. We hope to talk about and finalize the capital improvements, vehicle replacement, and pavement management. Just some background. The mayor isn't here. Couldn't make it tonight. So I had an opportunity to visit with him last week about, you know, the background on the budget. It was a very unique situation in setting the budget this year, unique circumstances with the change in city administrator. We had someone that was put in that spot that hadn't had a lot of experience in that. So the mayor and the finance director and the interim city administrator put the budget together as best they could. They were not, or didn't feel that they were in a position to make a lot of recommendations on the capital improvement program. So they recommended a few things, and a number of the other things will be left to us to talk about. And we're going to talk about that tonight. There's a number of items there, and there's also money there that's set aside so that we can decide what we want to do on capital improvements. I don't fault staff, and I don't fault the mayor. It's a set of unique circumstances, and we're just going to work through it. So I'm hoping that we can get through all of that tonight without it being 10 o'clock before we're done, because I think we're going to have to try to be done by about 7 would be my hope. What we're going to work from on vehicle replacement and the CIP is this document that was that document right there. It's a little bit cleaner than the big long thing that was included with the packet. So we're gonna work from that. And I think with that, I'm gonna let Finance Director Okens make any comments he wants to make, and then I'll tell you how I think we can move forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, the vehicle replacement program has been in existence and is kind of converted to what now is referred to as the equipment replacement program, to try to deal with and add larger pieces of equipment that may not be mobile by themselves. There's been a staff committee. Well, the council, first of all, has adopted the policy that has been in existence. The process that was used this year, January 30th of this year, the Fire Chief Hendrickson, who was the chairman of the committee, first notified all the departments or any departments that had vehicles that the process was starting, and he also notified the committee, which existed of Police Chief Felt, Public Works Director Christensen, Public Works Superintendent Liederbohr, and myself, that we would be having a meeting on February 23rd. We did meet on the 23rd and reviewed all of the recommended documentation that had been submitted. There was no document for the fire truck, but we did review all that. The fire chief took that back, adjusted the schedules based on recommendations where maybe some vehicles could be moved out according to the policy, and adjusted. He then sent out a working copy to the committee and the city administrator on March 12th, and on April 7th sent out an approved copy of that same document back to the administrator and staff members, stating that it was finalized and approved by the committee and the administrator. What you see on the handout and on the board is those vehicles that were proposed to be replaced for 2016, with one minor adjustment that the mayor had instructed staff, and that was to reduce the fire department pumper amount allocated. The dollar amounts were left unappropriated, but that his recommendation or proposal was to reduce it.
Okay. We have staff here, and they will be talking to each of these entries, and we'll do the same thing when we get to the CIP. So with that, let's start with the fire department, unless there's questions on our process, or if anyone has a better idea. Okay. Then, let's get to it. We'll start with the fire pumper. Chief Hansen, would you like to explain this to us? And
Chairman Anderson, members of the committee, The proposed staff budget for the fire department vehicle was $650,000. The reason that we are asking for that price or that amount, we did some research, or I did some research and did find back in 2012, fire chief then put a memo together requesting $650,000 for this vehicle. At that time, other things were changed, kind of to go to a different direction. Then when Chief Hendrickson came in 2013, he adjusted it back up to $650,000. The reason we're looking at replacing a 1988 vehicle. This vehicle that we're looking to purchase is a multi-system type of truck where it will haul water along with all the other equipment. Also, it will be a command center for us, which will allow us to have approximately 2 to 3 people inside at a command of an incident, where right now our chiefs, our assistant chiefs, our command staff are working out of a Ford pickup. So there's no room to do anything in that truck. The other capacity of this vehicle is going to be a SCBA fill station. So we're more self-sufficient on the scene, where we don't have to call other agencies to help us fill air bottles, stuff like that, and request their stuff. So this truck also would be a city/rural/mutual aid truck. So it would be a highly used vehicle that has a 25-year life cycle in it. So you look at the $650,000 up front is a lot of money, but broken over 25 years, it's $26,000 a year is what it is. We did look at, when we got the $400,000 amount from the mayor, we did look at going to not a custom-built vehicle, but a standard chassis vehicle. At that point, it would be reduced down to a one type of vehicle. We would lose our command section. We would actually lose spaces for firefighters to ride. Where this one, the proposed one, we would have 6 firefighters to be able to ride in there. If we went to a commercial chassis, we were looking at 4 to 5 firefighters riding in the vehicle. So that's just a few of the things that we're looking at. Also, more of the commercial chassis that we looked at have probably a 20-year life cycle to them versus a 25-year life cycle.
Okay. One thing I didn't mention to everybody tonight is the process we'll follow is I'll make a motion on each item, and then if it's seconded, then we'll have discussion. And we happen to start out with one that's a little bit different because we've got 2 different numbers. My question is, we have 400,000 in the budget, or do we have 650 in the budget?
Mr. Chairman, the mayor has 400,000 in his proposed budget numbers that he gave you. If the committee would remember that in the CIP presentation, there was $1,255,000 still available to be appropriated that are not in the mayor's numbers.
Right. Okay, so I'll make a motion to purchase the fire pumper in the amount of $650,000.
Second, yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to need a second on every one, and then we can discuss. We can accept it, we can reduce it, we can do whatever we want, but I want to have a motion on the table so we can start discussion. And I have one question, then we'll open it up. How often is this vehicle used? Is this something that's
This vehicle will be designed to go out pretty much on every single fire call we have. Plus training, the numbers vary so much right now. At least probably 300 times a year it'll be going out.
All right.
Kind of an estimate, I guess.
Questions from the committee? Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Chairman. Is there any fire department around here that has one like this that you're looking at, or?
The command center, stuff like that, no. They don't.
So would be the first of its kind in outstate Minnesota then, huh?
Well, in our county, I guess, outside of our county, I can't necessarily answer if there's other ones out there. But they do make them, they're common. I mean, it's not a totally unique vehicle, I guess.
And how do you feel about charging for fire calls?
I've not done the proper research at this point. I don't know. You know, there's ups and downs on fire calls.
Because I proposed it a few years ago. If your house or car is insured, the insurance company pays $500. But we never bill any of them.
Yep.
Some of the departments.
The
around here do.
only ones I know that we do bill are for like special incidents, hazardous materials, technical rescue stuff. We bill those out. But other than that, and then some alarm malfunction stuff, so.
Other questions? Councilmember Nelson?
Just a question. If we can't do the 650, would you rather wait a year and get the vehicle you want, or do you want the $400,000 one?
I think the $400,000 one will get us the very basics. I'm not sure that will even replace what we have now. The reason we're asking for, this one actually has gotten pushed out a couple of years. I think this one probably was supposed to be replaced in 2013. So we're really stretching it on this vehicle. We have a bunch of departments in the area that are interested in it, but I think if we keep putting miles on it and hours, I think we might get less for the other vehicle that we have.
Go ahead.
The trade-in is not considered, or the sale of it is not considered in these prices?
No, it is not.
Councilmember Hammond?
The extraction equipment's going to be on this one also?
No, that will be on a separate vehicle.
That's on a different vehicle?
Yes.
So what's wrong with this vehicle right now? What's not working on it?
The vehicle that we have, that we're replacing,
Bumper.
it's just ours that's on it. We just put, I think, just about $2,000 into repairing some of the pump components. And our repair person said that some of the stuff is going to need to be repaired if we keep using it as much as we do.
And what's our backup currently?
Currently, that is one of our backups. That vehicle right now is pretty much one of our backups.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Christensen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How many men does the 88 one hold? Does that hold 4, 5, 6 guys too?
Yes, about the same.
And how important is the command center? Is it to have the command center in this vehicle that's probably going to be stationary? I mean, I would think that maybe you'd want a mobile one so it can move around. And I don't know, but how important is it to have that?
It's pretty important. You want your command people to stay in one spot. You don't want them out moving around. This one's going to be able to give them the ability to be on the laptop to check out different websites, stuff like that, better firefighter accountability, stuff like that. So we don't want them moving around. We want them stationary in one spot.
Okay, because I would think the mobile one might be able to get a little closer to the fire. I'm not a firefighter, so I don't know these. That's why I'm asking.
Sure, sure. It would be close because it would be also used as to put the fire out. So they would be right on the block with the fire, but it just inside it would be more restricted to a command center.
I understand your request, but I keep thinking of our economy and the people in my ward that live on fixed incomes and expecting us to spend money prudently and be wise about it. And I just, I see the mayor put 400 and you're asking for 650. That's $250,000. That's a lot of money to a lot of people.
Yes, I agree.
And I have a hard time with CIP numbers because I called them in the past a wish list. And they don't always get spent during the year, but we need to be really frugal these days on spending our tax dollars. We have streets that need to be improved, and we had increasing costs for water and sewer and electricity, and these people on fixed incomes just keep spending money. And I've said this in the past, I'll say it again, it's so easy to spend taxpayer dollars. I mean, you don't look at it as their dollars. It looks like we have a pot of money, but it isn't that way. It's real people's money that live on 22nd Avenue, 24th Street. So I have a hard time spending $650. I would opt for the $400. The mayor used to be a fire chief, and maybe he's thinking the same thing I am. I don't know, but there's a reason why he put it in there, and I guess I would prefer to stick with that myself.
Councilmember Christensen, I think that's going to require an amendment.
I understand. Or
So if you want to make that as a motion.
I see.
Okay, so we have a motion to reduce the 650 to 400. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on the amendment. Councilmember Nelson?
I'm still concerned. I think this vehicle was planned a long time ago. So we have waited, we've held off doing it so that we could get the right vehicle, if I'm understanding correctly.
That is correct. It was
And it
planned out since 2013. We did have a plan in place, and then when this vehicle came up to date, the fire chief, would have been Chief Kelvin at the time, decided that he wanted to go with a second ladder truck instead of replacing this one. And then that's why this one got pushed out.
So this type of vehicle, though, has basically been considered a long time ago to be an appropriate one to be added to the,
Yes, that's correct, yes.
I'm wondering if interim city administrator would comment, and then if there's no other.
Well, I'll make just a little math comment. If they buy a fire truck right out of a catalog and it lasts 20 years at $26,000 a year, and you can design the chassis the way you want it, sturdier, stronger, and it lasts 25, there's $125,000 made up right there, just for the length of time that it's now serving instead of the standard vehicle. So that.
Okay. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm thinking either vehicle is not going to affect the time that takes to get to the fire. Either vehicle will put the fire out. I don't know why we'd want to spend $250,000 more when it's going to do, either vehicle is going to do the job. Either one of them will do the job. And one may last 5 years longer, or you get the heavier chassis for $125,000. But I can't think of a reason to buy the more expensive one. The only reason I can think of is that it's the command center will be there. I mean, the stationary one. But I know it has a lot of other bells and whistles, but they're both going to put the fire out. They're both going to get there at the same time. One hauls one less fire for firemen, but they're fire person. So yeah, I would stand with the amendment.
Ernie? Yes.
Just a thought as I'm sitting here thinking, if this is the ideal vehicle, which it kind of sounds like the fire department has this pegged as the ideal vehicle, I kind of like Councilmember Nelson's way of maybe thinking in asking the question, would we rather have this now and say it will suffice, or are we willing to wait, maybe defer 1 year to have exactly what we want or exactly what we need? Personally, I think that's a very logical, kind of straightforward way of looking at it, because a lot of times I personally in my own budget, if there's something that I need or I believe I need for my business, I don't figure out what will work or what will get by. It's either you need a certain piece of equipment or you don't. And if you have to put off the decision, well, you put it off, but at least you have decided which direction you want to go. So yeah, I like that question, I guess.
All right. To the question of the amendment, Councilmember Nelson.
question of the amendment. I think it applies, though, as to why we need the extra. And I would like the fire chief to respond to the efficiencies that will be created by having that. Because if I'm listening to having a command center, I would think you would be able to do things more efficiently and perhaps respond to some of the factors of the fire differently. So would you speak to kind of what
Sure.
Councilmember Christensen was referring to?
Yes. Just more efficient stuff would be able to actually have conversations with each other in there. It's very tough right now, sitting in front seat of a pickup. You're kind of limited to one person. Here, you're going to have 2 or 3 people in there bouncing ideas off each other. Also, we'll have the ability to have internet for multiple computers to run different programs, especially with our firefighter accountability stuff, where you can do that on just strictly one computer, and then you can do research and stuff on the other. Right now, we have to flip back and forth. Either we're not monitoring firefighters and we're researching something, or we're monitoring and not being able to research. So there's multiple things that way in the command center.
Okay, I want to move this along. Councilmember Fagerly.
Now, both of them are expensive, but what's inflation on one of these if we would wait a year?
We were told about 6 to 7%.
Or 7, okay. And when you have the newest and top-of-the-line equipment, does that help recruitment? Because we're short firemen.
I don't know if it helps recruitment. I think it helps the firefighters and the officers do their jobs better
Okay,
Safer.
and safer, absolutely.
let's vote on the amendment, which is to reduce the budget number from $650,000 to $400,000. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
I'm confused. Will you please clarify what you said? Because isn't the budget 400? Weren't we talking about?
The amount the original motion was 650.
Okay,
The amendment reduced it to 400.
okay.
So we're voting for the amendment. We're voting either for 650 or 400. The amendment takes it to 400. So we didn't have everybody vote, right?
I was totally confused.
Are you
I
clear?
would like it to stay at 650.
Okay, so then you voted no.
I'll vote no.
And I can't clearly identify if it was a 4-3 vote. Kevin, I think we'd better.
I think it was a 4-3 vote. Well, I could hear 3 ayes for the 400 on this side, and you.
And me.
So it was a 4-3.
Okay, so the amendment prevails, going to the $400,000. Now, we have the original motion, which is really kind of negated,
Right, it's moved.
so we don't need to deal with that. All right, moving right along. We're going to go to the police department on some patrol cars. Now, remember that these were all approved through the process, our process of when vehicles should be replaced. So, these should be fairly routine and pretty easy because we're following our own process. All right. Chief, if you would walk us through the patrol cars, please.
Sure, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for having me here. I will try and keep this very routine for you. Tonight for your consideration is we've identified through the process of 4 vehicles for replacement in 2016 for the police department. This goes along with the mechanics' recommendations, operators' recommendations, and you'll see them on the board up there. The 4 that we've identified, you'll notice that one has a slightly higher dollar amount attached to it than the others. That because the plan is that is a 2006 unmarked car. It's been a school resource officer car. The plan is to replace it with a marked vehicle, which requires a little bit different equipment, a light bar, divider cage between the prisoner and that type of thing. And the reason that we've chosen to do that is that'll allow us more flexibility for putting that vehicle into the patrol routine and hopefully get us some of the patrol vehicles to last a little bit longer by having an additional marked car.
Okay, I'm going to introduce each one. I'll make a motion to approve the 2006 Impala patrol car in the amount of $41,483.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The remaining 3 squad cars that you see there, there may be one change to that. We have a 2008 Chevrolet Impala that the mechanics are recommending that we replace that as soon as possible. We've delayed the replacement of that 2 years, and the time has reached the point where they believe the engine is using a lot of oil and may be detrimental for us to keep that. In exchange, we have found one of the 2013 cars that we're going to be moving a year in rotation, so it'll be the same dollar amount, but it'll just be a different vehicle, according to the mechanics' recommendations to replace.
Does that, well, okay, I'll make a motion before we start asking questions. So we'll put these 3 together, even though 2 of them are 13 and 1 of them is an 08.
That's our
That would be-
updated plan, yes.
Yeah, okay. Those 3 will be in the amount of $39,508 each, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
Now, I do have a question. Is this the net amount? So if you trade in a 2008 versus a 2013, there's probably going to be some difference in trade-in value or resale value or something?
There could be. We found that the value on those cars at the point they're at have been relatively low. They've gone on city auction and have averaged about $3,900 at about 100,000 miles. A couple of those cars are slightly under that, the 2006 and the 2008. So we assume they'll get about the same value.
Okay. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are these all going to be the new small SUV vehicles too then?
That would be our intention to approach the committee in the future to seek
Go that
approval
route.
on that, but to go that route also.
Excellent.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Public Works, Sean, if you'll identify each one, and then we'll do the same thing with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to find the same page everyone else is on.
Well, we got another sheet that looks like this, so
Well, I've got that.
that's why you're at a disadvantage.
No, he's got that.
I've got that one. I can do that. So we want to start with engineering. Which one do you want to start with?
The Bobcat, Toolcat,
Front page.
vehicles.
Still on vehicles. I'm sorry. So the Bobcat Toolcat is very similar to what was purchased for the Civic Center here 6 months ago, I would say. And this would be a piece of equipment that would be an upgrade from what we have now and a trade-in. And I guess beyond that, I think the rest of the information is in front of you, and I can answer any questions.
Okay, I'd move approval of the Bobcat Toolcat in the amount of $60,000.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Fagerly.
So wasn't the Toolcat 67,000 that we bought for the Civic?
You know what? While I'm looking at that, I'm seeing the same thing, and I don't have an explanation why that's different at this time.
Mr. Chairman.
So this could be higher.
It could be, yes.
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Fagerly, I believe the $67,000 Toolcat that was bought at the Civic Center included some attachments. I don't know if the discussion is that the same attachments would be included with this or not. That might have an effect.
That's right. Mr. Chair, we did have some additional attachments that were needed specifically to replace the forklift that was up at the Civic Center that we don't have at the Public Works Garage.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes. 2006 F-350 half-ton.
Yes, sir. It's a standard replacement of vehicles that are in the fleet per the approved policy on the replacement schedule.
Okay, I move approval of replacing the 2006 Ford F-350 half-ton pickup, the amount of $37,500.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. 2004 one-ton.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, that's the same as I just mentioned on the last item.
Okay, I'll move approval of the 2004 replacement one-ton pickup in the amount of $49,000. Discussion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Thank you, Sean. We'll get back. Are you going to do the waste treatment plant, or are you going to have Colleen do that?
I guess I'm doing that one, sir.
No, you're doing that one. All right, let's talk about 2006 Gator.
That is, once again, Mr. Chairman, per the CIP, or I'm sorry, Vehicle Replacement Program. That's a replacement of a vehicle that is got many hours and many miles on that particular item.
Okay, I'll move approval of 2006 Gator in the amount of $18,500. I do have a question. What is that used for? Is that at the old plant, the new plant?
That is at the new plant, Mr. Chairman. I don't think it ventures to the old plant at all.
Okay. And it's used for?
It's for general maintenance around the new plant. There's a lot of acreage there that they maintain with that, and so it's running equipment. It's doing different things. Mechanics use it quite a bit back and forth to the different buildings and facilities.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Okay.
Can I ask for clarification? Is this a done deal now, or are we going to come back to this?
No.
In the total, or what?
This is, as far as, unless I'm wrong, this is done. We've moved past this. Now, this will come back to the individual appropriate committee when the expenditure is ready to be made, but this is done.
So it'll come back as a total in the budget? But if we
This
end-
is, yeah, there will, $725,007 is what will be in the budget.
So just clarification, if we were unable to balance the budget, would we come back to look at some items if we end up needing to make adjustments?
If we get to that point, we're going to have to look at, yeah, a number of things.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Now, we can go to the capital improvement program. This is also what was in those big spreadsheets that we got. It's just a little bit cleaner. The only thing this doesn't have, that the spreadsheet had, was the ratings, the committee ratings on the individual items. So you might want to refer back to your spreadsheets to see what the ratings were, because that might be, give us some idea of what our staff thought about the importance of these things. So we'll go with the order that they're in here, which is different than what was on the spreadsheet. But we'll start out with information technology. Ross, are you going to, and let's do each one separately. And when we get to that point, I'll tell you what the rating was from staff. Okay, go ahead.
Chairman Anderson, members of the council, looking at the CIP requests we have on here, I'd like to start actually at the bottom ones, because I basically put them on the list based on the order of impact and how I feel to affect services for our citizens here. The Taunton Stadium Wi-Fi and the Community Center Wi-Fi. The Taunton Stadium was requested by the High School Activities Department, and Community Center Wi-Fi was requested by Community Ed and Recreation. Both of those locations currently do have limited amount of Wi-Fi. This would actually just expand that service throughout the entire facility. If the funding can be used better anywhere else, please by all means do so. The video server, moving up the list in what I would consider priorities.
Wait a minute, I'm going to do each one individually,
Okay.
just the same as we did on the vehicle. So you started out with the community center Wi-Fi in the amount of $10,000. Now that, just so that everybody can refer back to the capital improvement thing, that had a rating of 16 from the committee with a high of 50. 50 is the max, correct? Correct. I think 50 is the high, and this was a 16. So again, I'm going to make the recommendation, and the committee can do what they want. Move approval of the community center Wi-Fi in the amount of $10,000.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Nelson?
I think Steve is, Mr. Bresendine is back there. I know we had conversation, or I asked some questions about, does this impact rentals, or people willing to rent the community center? So I'm just curious with the demand, or the need for the demand.
It could affect the demand a little bit. There is some Wi-Fi already at the community center, and this would basically expand it throughout the entire building, so it could have a positive impact on the rental situation, yes.
Do the schools use it with all the iPads and those types of things? Do we have kids coming over there, or would it be beneficial to have Wi-Fi available for students?
Mr. Bresendine?
Go ahead, Mr. Bresendine.
Chair Anderson, members of the council, we had discussed putting this on the CIP just for that reason. Currently, the Wi-Fi at the community center is in the computer lab area. This would get us Wi-Fi throughout the building that is fairly heavily used, and intentions of trying to utilize it more. So to answer Councilman Nelson's question, yes, our intent is to have different uses and multiple people utilizing that facility, and we are seeing an uptick in that, especially in the Sunshine Room, which does not have access to Wi-Fi.
Okay. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is really, really low on the priority list, and I am not for this expenditure. $10,000 is a lot of money to people. Again, and if they've got Wi-Fi in one room out there, I mean, if somebody wants to use Wi-Fi, you walk 25 steps, 30, whatever it is, and you use the Wi-Fi. So I'm not in favor of this motion.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilmember Hammond.
I wonder if somebody could give me an update on that, the condition of the building. I was looking through the rest of the improvements, capital improvements for the building itself, for the structure. I know there were issues with the leaky roof, and and there's a lack of insulation in that existing building. It doesn't meet current code. I'm just curious, trying to make a decision here. I'm just curious as to see why there isn't anything in there for the community center for the roof replacement. I know it was talked about, it was in our last CIP programs, and I'm just wondering why all of a sudden Wi-Fi is more important than taking care of a leaky roof.
I'm not aware of the rest of the building issues. Mr. Bresendine could probably expand on that answer.
Yeah, we'll call on Mr. Bresendine to.
Chairman Anderson, Councilman Amon, you're exactly right. There is nothing else in the CIP currently for that facility. We're awaiting the study of all facilities within the system that we think will give us an overview of what the needs are for all of our existing buildings. So we are aware of issues with that facility, especially related to the roof and some water infiltration. So that we hope to have once the facility study is completed.
I would not be in support of these. I think our precedent should be to concentrate on other pressing issues of that building.
Councilmember Johnson.
My question would be, do we have any information from other cities to indicate if they have a similar activity center as our community center and have put in Wi-Fi, how that has boosted their rental interest? I mean, actual rental interest with, people that wanted it for that reason? Or is this just some conclusions that we think it'll produce more
The only
interest?
other facility that I could take data directly off of would be the Civic Center, where we do have some limited amount of Wi-Fi out there, and the intent to put that out there, and it was carried through, was to be able to charge that as a service to the vendors, and that was successful out there.
Okay. That helps. Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
Just clarification, is there Wi-Fi there now, or are the computers hardwired?
There's both. There is some Wi-Fi,
Okay.
and we do have 5 regular desktop computers.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That does not pass. Taunton Stadium Wi-Fi, I'll introduce a motion to approve that in the amount of $20,000.
Second.
Discussion. Can you give us a little bit, I think you gave us a brief introduction when you're going through it, but can you tell us why this is important at Taunton Field?
This was a project requested by the activities department at the high school. There is internet out there, which is actually paid for through the Stingers, and a very limited amount of Wi-Fi capabilities there too. This would simply expand those capabilities.
Okay. Discussion. Councilmember Plowman.
What level of service would this $20,000 achieve? What type of system could you have there, quality-wise?
Quality-wise, would be enterprise-level type Wi-Fi. We were looking at possibly putting out Aruba networks, which is what we were looking at putting in the Civic Center also. It'd be able to handle the capabilities of the hundreds of people that would be out there. So.
Okay. In your opinion, if say this budget were to cut in half, is there anything even nearly comparable that could do a mediocre job yet suffice, or in your opinion, no?
I'd probably say no, because the infrastructure, the wiring at this point is not out there, and that would have to be included with this.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I would speak against this expenditure due to the fact that it's, it was rated to 20, which is pretty low by staff, and this money could be better used elsewhere to have Wi-Fi there. Most people are carrying their iPhones around, and
Okay.
at the games, I don't, I speak against it.
All in favor of approving it, say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
That does not pass. Are you going,
I was going to ask a question. Do we pay rent, or do the high school pay rent to us for using that facility?
For the ballpark,
Yeah.
I'm not aware if they do or not.
let's get that clarified, Mr. Brizendine.
Chairman Anderson, members of the council, the high school does not pay rent for that facility. In lieu of rent, they participated in the capital improvements of that when the stadium was redone.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now, are you still continuing up from the bottom?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, sir.
All right, let's go to the video server. I just want to, I was corrected, there's a rating system of 0 to 60, not 50, 0 to 60. The video server was rated as a 23, so go ahead, please.
The video server would actually go into our rack facility. It'd be used for the fourth channel, and the reason we would need this particular server is because the fourth channel, when we do get it, will be a high-definition channel, and we would need a high-definition server for it in order to take full access of the capabilities of the channel.
Okay, I would move approval of the video server in the amount of $10,000.
Second.
Discussion. Am I to understand, Ross, that if we don't do this, we would not be able to broadcast in HD when that time comes?
That is correct.
Okay, whoops.
Just as a clarification, that's actually only for an SD server. We're not doing HD. The HD one is more expensive. That would be for channel 8 and for the new channel. If we don't have the server, we won't have any programming on the new channel, because that's the only programming that we're going to run from it. HD is later.
Okay. So if I can repeat that, we won't have any programming on, we'll get the new channel, but we won't be able to have anything on it if we don't do this. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? That passes. New city website. Go ahead, Ross, please.
What we were looking at doing is getting a professional complete redo of this current city website. The one we have right now will be about 6 years old next year. Now, by the book, a website should be redone about every 6 or 7 years. As you can see on the memo here, we've received complaints of too many pages, the searches aren't done well, and that's not just from the public, that's also from staff. Those complaints we're getting. Administration of the site is also difficult. And what we would do is go through a company that would professionally redo the site and actually host the database for us. Also, right now, the site actually is the only retention we have for all of the council meeting minutes and video.
Okay.
And one of the ideas we have behind this is that it's kind of the first place that people go to look for the city of Willmar to receive information on. So you really want to have that as a professionally done, well-looking presentation of the city.
I introduce a motion to make a new city website in the amount of $25,000.
Second.
Discussion. Councilman Plowman.
The individuals that whom have you been in talks with anybody regarding building the site?
Yes, we've talked to 2 different companies at this point, getting proposals.
Do either have experience working specifically with government or municipalities?
Yes, actually, one company specifically does just government websites and are quite good at providing the services that we're looking for on it, so.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Alman.
Just curiosity, when you get to this point, I know you're in the planning process, is it possible to have this new website do surveys on surveys from priorities from the council? Is there any, like a blog on any issue, if we wanted to post something to the community on their
I believe that is a capability that we could look at adding on it, so.
Okay. That's my concern. It would be nice to have that.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Server switches.
Switches are basically the, kind of the heart of the network that we have right now, and right now they're all approaching anywhere from 8 to 5 years old. They should be replaced technically no more than 5 years, and if one of them goes down, we'd really put not just the staff, but also citizens kind of at a standstill for being able to access our resources, such as the phones would go down, email, all data services. So what we're looking at doing is trying to get a replacement plan where every 5 or 6 years we replace the switches based on a rotating schedule, so.
I'll move approval of the server switches in the amount of $31,000.
Second.
All right, I'm gonna show my ignorance. What is a server switch? What does it do?
It actually routes traffic from the servers to the end users, so.
Okay.
If you ever get a chance, come up to the IT department, we'll give you a tour. Not as exciting as, say, the police department, but, you know,
All right.
we can offer. So.
Councilmember Nelson.
I just have a question on the rating system. I'm looking at these. Did ITs just get rated together, or are they everything rated together? Because there's only, I know you said it went to 0 to 60, but there's only 150, and then you go down to 40, and then there's a lot of 30s. So I you know, if we're comparing these, I'm not quite sure if we're looking at the rating system right.
I'll let
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Nelson, and there are a couple committee members that are here as department levels. I was not there this year, but Mr. Peterson chaired the committee on the capital improvement program. We provided to the council the criteria rating, the 6 different areas, and each item is rated individually by the committee, and everybody on the committee gives their input, and then a cumulative rating is arrived at. It must be a tough rating group.
Well, I think it's just important that we understand that. So actually, items that are in the 30s are actually being rated fairly high if you look at the items, so.
Good point.
But there is a consistent rating for all the items.
Okay. All in favor of the server switches in the amount of $31,000, say aye.
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 Opposed? That passes. Server room generator. Ross, please.
The generator would actually provide a redundant power supply to the switches, the servers, everything in there. And my memo is actually wrong. We've lost power 3 times since in the past year and a half. And actually, the switches did go down due to a lack of power last time. What this would do is according to the memo, put a natural gas generator on the roof of City Hall. It'd be able to provide power for the data center efficiently.
Okay, I'll move approval of the server center generator in the amount of $20,000.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Hammond.
Question, is there, I spoke with, or left a message with Mr. Christensen from Christensen and Associates. I don't think they have a generator backup system either at this time. And I left a message with his office that was over a month ago to see if he was, they would be willing to share in the cost of something like that. I don't know if it's possible or if we need our own system, but talk about working relationships with businesses, if that would be something that could be done to save us any money, or whether it's not feasible, I don't know. But with the proximity of those two buildings there, as close as they are, I don't know if that's something that they'd be interested in to help offset the cost, just like the cost we are benefiting from for the use of the fire department tower. We may be able to do something like that. Just a thought. I don't know if you can research that or ask them. But.
Do you have any thoughts?
Something that would power what Christensen and Associates would also need would probably also increase our cost on the server generator.
Okay.
And I'm not sure of the feasibility of, if the infrastructure would be in place to cost effectively do something like that, so.
It's an interesting comment. Do you suppose the fact that he didn't respond for a month, does that
Kind of tells me something.
maybe tell us something? Okay, I mean, that's a really good thought. Okay, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. Ross, how many how many computers are on the system now that that this generator would back up? I mean, how many computers do we have? Are we taking care of?
It would actually take care of the entire data center of the city.
Yeah, the phones too, I guess, are run
Correct,
through
because it's, I hate to say it's a number of computers, it's all of our systems that are on there, the phones, email, data, and all of our networking equipment like the switches would run off of this, so.
Yeah, I mean,
Including the, the financial AS400 too, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that, based on Councilmember Amund's comments, that the accounting firm, Christensen and Associates, they must be using battery backup, and I know several other businesses in town that just use battery backup. I presume that's what the city has now?
Yes, we do have some battery backup, and the battery life on that is around 1 hour at this point, so.
Are there better battery backup systems than what we're currently using?
Then you start looking at needing banks of batteries, and you start moving up towards that tens of thousands of dollar range too, so.
I know in my old office, we had battery backup, but we only had about probably 12, people and about 12 phones.
Yeah.
But when we had power outages, it did the job, so I just, and
Because physical machines were actually running around 15 to 30 pieces of equipment off of the battery backup, so it's really meant just to do a graceful shutdown and prevent power surges, so.
Anything else? Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unless we're expecting a lot of power outages, I would say no to this request. To have this natural gas generator sitting there and then operate 3-4 times a year, $20,000 doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's especially with the battery backups. I don't think the outages have been 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. I mean, MUC is pretty diligent in getting those things fixed right away, and I think it's a poor expenditure. We can get along without it.
Okay. Councilmember Nelson.
I think you had shared in the documentation what happened that there was one. and
Correct, there
amount
were
of
actually
time, so-
2 long-term power outages in the past year, and the third one actually just occurred about 3 weeks ago, and I believe that was about 1 hour long, and by the time we were able to react to it, the battery had already died and the switches were done, so.
But didn't you have something in there about how long it took you to restore?
Correct. The staff time involved with a planned one was approximately 18 hours for a 2-hour outage, so, because we had to plan it, make sure we were there, gracefully shut down the servers, bring all the services back up. It's quite a lengthy process involved, so.
Okay, all in favor of the server room generator in the amount of $20,000, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Was that 5-2? I think? Yep, that passes. Wastewater treatment plant switches, I gather that's what WTP is.
Correct. That would fall into the same category as the server switches, only these are actually at the new site, and then there's 2 at the old site. Those, same as the server switches, are approaching end of life, time to be replaced on there. Some of them are actually from when the treatment plant was first built from 2010, so. And currently, we're working with Colleen and In Control to try and get a replacement schedule done for that equipment, so that way, services aren't interrupted by hardware dying.
Okay. I'll introduce the wastewater treatment switches in the amount of $25,000.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. All right. That's our first effort at that first one. It looks like we would allocate 111, I think. All right, let's move to the fire department. Frank, how come you bring so much difficulty? Well, welcome back. You know, do you need to put, is the SCBA thing, should we talk about that in total, or do you want to talk about it individual line items? How best to handle this?
I think we would like to probably talk about the packs and the bottles as a total.
Packs and the bottles
yes.
as a total. Okay. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Chairman Anderson, members of the council, in front of you, you have the budget. We have budgeted total of $340,000 for new SCBA packs and bottles. The bottles will be over their useful life and will have to be destroyed and replaced in 2016. The packs themselves are to the point where they're standard behind as well. And we would like to replace them as maintenance costs is starting to grow on them as well.
Okay. You know, I asked you that. I think I'm going to make a separate motion. I want to do I'll introduce the 50 SCBA packs in the amount of $275,000.
Second.
Now, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
We went through this whole discussion about the verbal order and all that, and that's all behind us. But as a result of that, did you indicate to the company that we would be purchasing these? I mean, are we obligated?
No, we have not
morally
indicated to the, no. No, we're no more obligated than we were months ago.
Okay. Questions from the committee? Councilmember Johnson?
I would have questions for Mr. Wilkins. If we approve this for placement in the CIP, we're not approving a current obligation for the city. We had this discussion before, and that's what I understood, that we don't have to then make any definite set aside of these funds.
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Johnson, that would be a correct statement. There would be no obligation with the company. It is only dealing with the budget and appropriating at this time.
For spending in 2016.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought.
I'm getting some conflicting stories on this. These packs are going to go out of date or code or whatever it is, and then if they go to the next level of out of code or date, then we might be eligible for grants, if there are is there grant money available? Am I getting that right?
That's possible. The next code update could be in 2019 or 2020, which would put us 2 years, or 2 codes behind, or 2 standards behind. Then we would possibly be eligible for grants if they exist at that time.
Okay. Are we putting firefighters at risk if we don't replace those now?
I don't think I can stand up here and honestly say we're putting people at risk. I think our equipment is decent, but can be better. And with the new updates, it gives the firefighters the ability to get out of the fire sooner or be alerted of low air before they run out of air. We've had some incidents where firefighters have ran out of air in buildings over the last, I would say, probably 10 years.
What will we do with the old packs?
The old packs right now, I've had some people or some companies and some other departments talk to me about that, and we would consider selling them the packs.
So does that put, if they're not good or maybe not the best, that doesn't put us at any risk to sell them to somebody else?
No, there is actually, I believe there's legislation out there that says that we can give smaller departments or sell other departments or companies our equipment without any liability. I'd have to check into that for 100% sure.
Okay. Anything else? Councilmember Nelson?
Do the packs and the bottles remain compatible if they're different ages? Is there something that needs to be done, or is there an advantage to doing them together?
Well, if we don't do them together, and we just purchase bottles, in 2019 or 2020, we'll have to purchase bottles again, because the bottles that we have right now and the packs that we have right now, the companies told me that they're phasing that style out, or it's called a low pressure bottle, and they're phasing those out. So by the time we get to the 2019 version, we're going to have to buy everything brand new again, or 2020.
What's the life of the bottles?
Bottles are 15 years.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor of the 50 SCBA packs, the amount of $275,000, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. The bottles for 65, I'll introduce a resolution for the 50 SCBA bottles in the amount of $65,000.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. SCBA compressor.
Chairman, member of the council, we are proposing a new SCBA compressor. The current one we have was purchased in 1995 and has about 1,600, just about 1,700 hours on the compressor itself right now. Typically, they last approximately 20 years, so we are at that time where it is time to replace that. Also, with the purchase of higher pressure bottles, the compressor cannot get up to the maximum pressure without extra effort, basically, on the firefighter's part.
Okay. I'll introduce the SCBA compressor in the amount of $40,000.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Extraction equipment.
We are proposing car extrication equipment in the amount of $35,000. Right now, Canada County Rescue Squad does the vehicle extrication with their equipment. We are proposing for the fire department to get a set of equipment of their own to serve the citizens of Willmar. We're not proposing we take over any sort of rescue squad duties or anything like that. They're wonderful at their job. The problem is if they are in a different part of the county and we have a car accident in Willmar, we don't have the proper equipment. We've had to kind of mangle through a few times to get people out of cars.
Okay, I'll introduce the extraction equipment in the amount of $35,000.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Hammond, then Christensen.
Thanks, and I don't want to be a stickler here because I understand your number one goal is safety and life-saving, and I'm not trying to be tight, but I have to question it. When I was at the county here with Denny Jordahl, he gave me a tour of the facility a while back, and they were actually, they have two new vehicles, all fairly new vehicles, all set up with the extraction equipment and state-of-the-art generators, you name it, very nice equipment. Then they have another vehicle, another 3/4 ton truck that has additional extraction equipment in it, and there are two of them sitting on the workbench. Those are there for, well, they're just there. That was some of the original equipment that they, extraction equipment they had years ago. And they still function and they still work. Why can't we use that?
The problem, I think, with that stuff that they have is that's all hydraulic driven, and then we would have to get hydraulic generators and stuff added to the vehicles. What we're looking at here is we're looking at battery operated equipment, where we wouldn't have to add anything to the fire truck.
So there's no, is there an electrical one too, electrical generator that you can buy that will, they don't work on, it's all strictly hydraulics?
That is correct, yes.
Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would speak against this expenditure also due to the fact that there are 3 fully loaded trucks out at the KNUI Rescue Squad building. They're experts at extrication. The fire department's experts at putting out fires. You know, if they need some extrication equipment, I would suggest that maybe one of those vehicles be placed at the fire department and talks with them. I mean, I just can't see. We're trying to work together with the county and city in many different areas, and saving money should be our number one priority because this is taxpayer money. We're talking saving lives, but the rescue squad has been there. They're there when they're needed. What if the fire department's out on an extrication? They don't have enough people to do fire. I mean, I don't know if that would occur, but I just think we're duplicating effort here when it's not necessary. And if we think it is, then let's get one of those trucks stationed at the fire department.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Anyone else? Councilmember Nelson?
Do I understand correctly that some of the smaller fire departments have this, when you go out throughout the county, that they're not, or don't choose to wait for the rescue squad to?
That is correct.
Could you speak to how many, or?
Sure, I know that Atwater Fire Department has some, New London does, Sunburg. I can't speak to Lake Lillian and down in that area, but I know that those other departments do, because it is a long distance for the rescue squad to get there.
Okay, all in favor of the motion for the extraction equipment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That fails. Roof replacement.
Mr. Chair, we are looking at replacing the roof of the fire station for the amount of $48,500. Just some history on the roof. The building was built in 1970, and when it was originally built, the training room and the far north stall of the fire station was not there. The roof was replaced on the original section in 1982 and again in 1996. The north stall and the training room were constructed in 1990, and that still has the original roof on it. Currently, we have leaks all the time. We've discovered that the side of the roof is pulling away from the building, so it would take some extensive repair as well.
Okay. I'll introduce the roof replacement at the fire station for $48,500.
Second.
Discussion? Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know how this building could go on that long without being repaired. I don't understand this, folks. I just do not understand it. We've had 3 fire chiefs there in the last how many years? And how many guys working there, including a secretary? And this thing to get fixed, it's time to get it fixed. It's time. I'm assuming this is the complete roof. We're not talking about partial anymore. It needs to be done.
Yes.
This fire station is super important to this community. Just needs to get it done.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? That passes. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Engineering.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the first thing on the list is,
Survey equipment.
yes, sir, survey equipment. This particular piece of equipment, as your notes have mentioned there in front of you, is actually been pushed back a couple years. And it's the full GPS system that our engineering department uses for all of its surveys. It includes a robotic total station and replacing a 10-year-old GPS unit. Summary here a little bit, does preliminary surveys, we do construction staking, topographic surveys, as-built surveys, there's for all the city projects.
Okay, I'll introduce updating the survey equipment in the amount of $50,000.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Pavement management.
Yes, now this one here is a little interesting because it's, as you know from past years, we've put a more of a placeholder in there until we figure out what kind of funds we have available, and working diligently with the finance department and others, and we make sure that happens, and we can do as much as we can for the dollars we have. That being said, I've included the entire pavement management program, or the entire pavement management program rather has been included in your packet. You've seen that before. It includes the full program, what we did last year for projects, or this current year for projects rather. And I guess I would stand to answer any questions that you may have about that.
All right, before we do that, I'll introduce the pavement management in the amount of $3 million.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Ahman.
Thanks, Sean. As curiosity, how much of this is for maintenance or seal coating, crack sealing?
These numbers do not typically include seal coat and crack seal, as that's in the budget for the Public Works. This is reconstruct, overlays, and actually I think it's just reconstruct and overlays.
Include 9th Street and 10th Street also?
It can, yes.
Thank you.
Could you give us just a brief overview from your perspective, the condition of our streets? I mean, I think sometimes we're our own worst enemies and we talk about how bad the streets are. I don't believe they are that bad. Certainly there are some maybe residentials, but the arterials and the feeders and all of that sort of thing. Just from your perspective, I know we've got the miles in here, but
Sure.
what do you think about the condition of our roads?
Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned before, in general, our roads are in good shape. We do have a number of miles that are in poor shape, that need reconstructed. Unfortunately, that reconstruction, as you know, a statewide average is about $2 million per mile, which hinders most communities and a lot of communities to reconstruct a lot of miles of street in any given year. Which is why I've been, in the year and a half I've been here, I've been harping on maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. We have to overlay these streets, we have to crack seal these streets, we have to seal coat them. If we don't, and they drift into the reconstruct phase where they're beyond repair, then it costs us $2 million a mile. That being said, there's been a number of streets, in fact, the list we work on is streets that I've seen in just a short year and a half I've been here that have been removed from the plan for a number of reasons. So I don't know what kind of overview you want, but the short answer is yes, our streets are in generally good shape. You can and I can, of course, name a number of streets that are in poor shape to defute that statement. But for the most part, I believe our streets are in decent shape. We do have to maintain the ones we have.
Okay. For Councilmember Nelson?
This 3 million fits into what the utilities is able to do with reconstruction also?
Mr. Chairman, Councilmember Nelson, this in the past and typically has included those dollars that come in. Once again, like I say, this is more of a placeholder. This isn't the exact dollar amount that will be spent or that be bonded for in the end. Once we figure out which streets are going to be specifically constructed or maintained next year, then that's when we contact MUC. They have it on their list and their budget as well.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Storm sewer design.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd look through my agenda here. I don't remember if I saw anything in mind, so if you've seen it, what this design is, that's great. I'll go off of memory here. If you haven't, I'll still go off of memory, but what this involves is a design, as you may recall from a report years ago from, I believe, Bar Engineering as an option to help out with some of the stormwater maintenance or stormwater management, rather. And this would be using the old wastewater treatment facility. I'm sorry, this I think would be the western interceptor for the storm drain and using some of the old pipeline that was from the old wastewater treatment facility to use as storm instead of sanitary sewer. What this represents is a design of what that could look like, and could, at today's rates, would be about $1 million worth of construction. So this would be the design only of that particular project.
Okay. I'll introduce a motion to approve the storm sewer design in the amount of $200,000.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned about $1 million worth of construction. What would you estimate the cost of that construction be if all those existing structures weren't in place?
Councilmember Plowman, that's my $1 million number is simply based on an engineering costs, design costs of $200,000, and engineering being about 20 to 25% of design at this time. Okay. So if structures and pipe and things of that nature are in place, obviously we can get more miles of storm, if you will, for that same $1 million is kind of what I'm trying to base it on.
Okay. So you think this is probably this plan using existing structure that may be there much more cost effective than going other routes, not using that?
Oh, absolutely. With that pipe already in place, of course, there's right-of-ways and easements already there. There is a small section, half to 3/4 of a mile, that would need new pipe and maybe some right-of-way or easement. If the original, let's say, concept plan was to go through. But yeah, the piping obviously from the wastewater treatment facility in the center of town to the outskirts of town, with that all piping in place already, it's drastic savings for that particular section.
Excellent. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. I think I'm up next
I guess you're still
anyway.
there, yeah. You're going to do public works, starting with paint striping machine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe in the minutes here we might have a little typo there. We won't discuss that necessarily, but these machines have had heavy use and currently have heavy use. Parks and field markings, streets for marking crosswalks, arrows, stop bars, and recently, most recently with bike paths and pedestrian pathway systems. We've put this replacement on a priority, as the current machines have considerable repair costs because of heavy use.
I'll move approval of the paint striping machine in the amount of $12,000.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Second on the list you have in front of you is the garage and shop lighting. if you've been in the garage recently or even in the last couple of years, it's very dimly lit in the Public Works garage, and so this would be high efficiency, economical lighting if we can get that in there, and replace all of the 8-foot fluorescent lights in the old part of the garage area. They're no longer available, of course, as you know, fluorescents have been phased out, and see the comments here, the price, if we do find them, reflect the difficulty in finding that particular style of bulb.
Okay, I'll introduce approval of Public Works garage lighting in the amount of $35,000.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm assuming we're looking at LED lighting for the shop.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, Councilmember Christensen, that's the intent right now, is to look at LED.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Roof repair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If this may look familiar, as we've tried to phase this into different sections of different years for the roof repair of this Public Works facility. This is one of, as it says here, one of 4 sections for the older part, and this has already been, or actually, I'm sorry, it could be delayed a couple years and combined with other roof structures. Obviously, this price may not be held if it's delayed.
Okay. I'll move approval of the roof repair in the amount of $40,000.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Pressure washer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This in front of you is a $9,000 for pressure washer. Current one we use is 20 years old and gets extensive use. Obviously, as parts and pieces get old, it gets harder and harder to find. The pump and heating coils and electric motor have been repaired. Future repairs, of course, are more expensive and possibly harder to find parts.
I'll introduce approval of the purchasing of the pressure washer in the amount of $9,000.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Airport. Megan, welcome. Now, as I understand it, Megan, there are some items that you are moving to some other years that we won't be discussing here. Is that correct?
Correct. Chairman Anderson, members of the council, there were 4 items on this list that it was my intent to be moved to other years. I believe my draft version was submitted instead of my final version due to my own error. Those 4 items that would not be in 2016 are the fencing plans and specs, the backup generator, the environmental assessment, and the land acquisition for County Road 116.
Okay. Well, that makes our job a little easier.
It does.
Why don't you start from the top then, please?
Sure. The first item is the airport master plan. The last one was done in 1997, and that was before the new airport was built, and it discusses all the options and how to build the new airport. It really doesn't talk about how we move forward once the new airport exists. So that's being requested for $250,000.
And we pay $250 and the feds, I don't have that spreadsheet in front of me, pay a bunch, right?
Correct. It's a 90-10 split. We would have to be available, or we would have to be in compliance for federal funding in order to do this project, which we currently are not.
Okay. I'll introduce the airport master plan in the amount of $250,000.
Second.
Discussion? Councilmember Ahman?
Hi, thanks, Megan. What's changed in the airport since that time? As far as the usage has been pretty stable and been pretty flat as far as the amount of airplanes coming in and out of that new facility versus what the old one was. I believe it was about 10 or 12% higher increase in usage. During that time frame, since the new airport was built, I'm just curious, what warrants the change, or what we're trying to do with the improvements that we've done out there with the master plan? To have a study for $250,000, whether it's only 10% city's money or 90% federal government. Federal government's broke. We're all broke. So I don't know why that we think we're getting it for nothing, but I'm just curious, is this really necessary? I mean, what's going to change with that, what the use is in this town, if it's going to be for another 5 or 10 years, is going to change? We have to warrant spending federal money and city and state money on that, when the industry at this time, we don't have the usage that we would like to have, and the hangars are full, and I think we have a pretty good handle on it with the airport commission right now. I'm just curious, what is this going to do to change the airport, which is a real dead horse as far as making money for the city? It's very expensive, and it's a necessary service, but it's something that costs us a lot of money to maintain every year for the limited usage that we have. And I just wonder if you have any comments on that. I'm questioning the amount of money here, Megan. Not that you're not trying to do your job. I'm curiosity.
And being a planner in that background, master plans and comprehensive plans are very important.
Yeah.
The federal government actually requires a master plan update every 20 years. The last one was 1997, so we're very nearly due.
They require it, excuse me if I interrupt, but they require, so what if we
Every
don't,
20
then we will
years.
not get federal funding to maintain our airport?
Right. All of our grant assurances of all the federal funds that we accepted to build our new airport would be at,
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Overlay the taxi lanes in the east hangar.
Every 3 years, MnDOT inspects all of our paved areas at the airport. We just had one done in August. And the area that is the most in need of repair, we've already did some work on the main runway last year. But the next phase of improvements or pavement that is showing deterioration is that east hangar area. Some of it caused by our own attempts to deal with some drainage issues. Right now, that's at a pavement index of 56 to 70, meaning it's good. That's a distress. They have different measurements, and so that would be up for funding next year at the 70-30 split that's state eligible.
Okay. I'll introduce overlaying the taxi lanes by the east hangar in the amount of $250,000.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember
You're
Fagerly.
using asphalt or concrete?
It's asphalt.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Credit card jet fuel. Because you skipped the fencing plans,
Right,
right?
I'm messing myself up. Okay. The current, we already replaced the Avgas credit card machine, and this is for the jet fuel. Technologically speaking, in the 10 years that the airport has been open, credit cards and that whole process has changed quite a bit. This is something that the users and the FBO are requesting to meet current credit card needs and security protocols. It would be open for a state grant with the 70-30 split.
Okay. I'll introduce the credit card jet fuel arrangement in the amount of $20,000.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. The Navaid access roads.
This project is something that was requested by MnDOT. There are several pieces of equipment that are out on parts of the airport, the weather station, the VOR, and the localizer that do not have access roads to them. They simply drive across the grass or in the winter through the snow to access them. They're their equipment, they maintain them, they have to access them regularly. This would be available for a 70-30 split. This would just be a gravel access road to these pieces of equipment.
I'll introduce the Navaid access roads in the amount of $55,000.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. All we have left is the tiling and drainage. Is that the only one, Megan?
Yes. This is for tiling and drainage work around the private hangar area. There's been water issues there since the airport has opened. This is something we'd like to get taken care of so that the new projects that we hope to begin fix things that aren't working there now before we start new ones.
Okay. I'll introduce the tiling and drainage around the private hangars in the amount of $31,500.
Second.
Discussion? Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What exactly are they going to do? Because I know they've tiled and retiled and tried to move water out there away from these hangars. What are they going to do? I mean, they can't raise the hangars, so
Right.
where's the water going to go?
There hasn't been a full looking at the whole private area and have a master plan of that whole area. There's been little Band-Aid fixes done. This would be taking our airport consultant and having a real plan and moving forward with it.
And then this doesn't have any participation by state or federal either, right? This is strictly on our own.
It's my understanding that it's not because it's off the taxiway. It's in, if it was on the runway or the taxiway, they would participate. We would still submit it and see if they'd be willing to participate.
I know it needs to be done. I'm just curious as to what they're going to do. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Leisure Services,
Councilman Branch.
Councilmember Nelson.
Clarification, so the items that she removed, that total is in the budget? So
The total is in the budget, yes. So
it
that amount will
has
come
a
out.
dramatic difference?
We'll go ahead and answer.
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Nelson, the city participation of the items removed total $126,500. So those funds will now be available since those items were pushed out into the out years.
Thank you.
All right. Welcome, Steve.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, before you in the CIP, our department has submitted a portion of the park plan, and for 2016, it was our choice to, with input from the community, to start with the Rice Park project. We would demo some of the current existing equipment that is out of use, the wading pool and the tennis courts, along with the basketball playing area and the shelter that is on site, and replace that with a 3-season shelter and a splash pad would be the two new items going into that facility. And we would also go in and put some pathways and increase or actually address the ADA issues to the current playground at that facility. Those are the items that are submitted. The mayor has submitted a price tag of $710,000 for this project. The only thing in the park plan that we do not anticipate doing right away is moving the basketball court, because we think we've got further long-term fixes on the basketball court at other sites in our community, and that we would leave the horseshoes in the current location. Other than that, we would follow this park plan.
Okay, I'll introduce the park development of Rice Park in the amount of $710,000.
Second.
All right, no, I stopped there because I see two different numbers, 710 and 706.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the mayor, I don't know if he rounded or he put in 710. The request was 706.
I'm going to amend my motion to 706, if that's okay with the
Sure.
seconder. Discussion. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you'll recall, we had a discussion on this when we accepted the park plan. And I and several others asked the question whether or not we would be looking for grant money. We were told at the time we accepted the park plan, which was over $20 million, that they couldn't, or they needed us to accept it to go out and get grants to help fix up these parks. If we can spend $700,000 on Rice Park, I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, we have streets that need to be fixed so we can get to the park. $700,000 on one park. We just listened to a presentation at our last council meeting on replacing, I believe it was about 40% of the playground equipment, and which is going to cost, I don't know, up to, I think there's $150,000 set in CIP for that. But, and we haven't determined yet what parks get the most usage. I know there's been complaints at Rice Park, but I mean, how can we, in our right mind, spend $706,000 at Rice Park? How can we do that? I mean, this is utterly out of the ballpark. I mean, we're talking about taxpayer money here. I mean, $706,000 would do a lot of street improvement. I don't get it. I don't know how we can support this. I just don't understand it, because we haven't had one grant come forward, or anybody saying they would get a grant, or I don't know if maybe they're trying, but I cannot support this. I just, in my right mind, I'm thinking of the people over in Southwest Wilmer that I represent, and there's a lot of them that are on streets that probably could be fixed for this amount of money. I don't know how we got here with it. I just don't. And for the mayor to add $4,000 more, I don't understand it personally. I just do not.
Okay, Steve, would you like to comment? And then I have a comment or two.
Well, as far as grants, we are in the process of looking at grant opportunities. If you recall, one of our biggest grant opportunities would come through legacy dollars with regional parks. Our neighborhood parks, such as Rice Park, are not candidates for regional status, so that's basically our Robbins Island Park system is where we're looking at getting regional status, and with that would come potential future opportunities for legacy dollars. As for grants, we are exploring the opportunities that would exist with grants. We are hoping to partner with other community organizations to assist us with these plans. I believe Rice Park is probably other than if you look at Swanson Complex with all the ball games that take place with the athletic fields, I believe in an informal study that Rice Park to be the busiest park that we have in this community. I think it's a focal point, being one of the most regionally located parks in our community where much of the business and daily aspects of life take place. Enhancing this park, I think, would do our community wonders when it gets to the quality of life type issues that park systems possess. As the park study said, we've got a wonderful park system, but we've got a neglected park system. We have not spent a lot of money in the last 15 to 20 years on our park system, and I think that shows with the equipment and other things that were addressed in the study. As far as the equipment, in further years of the CIP, we started investing, we are hoping to start investing in the neighborhood of $1,000 a year on the park playground equipment that would upgrade some of our systems. So I think that would be my response to the questions.
Okay, and I just have a comment. I think we need to go back to the park plan that was developed where, it was initially set that we'd have 2 regional parks and 4 or 5 big neighborhood parks. I'm not exactly sure what the exact title of that was, and I think Rice Park was one of them, North Side was one of them, and there were some others. If we get all of that done, then the usage of the parks certainly looks different than what it looks today. Maybe some of the parks aren't used real heavily because the equipment is old or outdated or whatever. We knew this was going to cost us some money. So I will agree that we accepted it. We didn't say how much money we were going to spend when we were going to spend it, but we had to know that there was going to be something coming, that it was going to cost us some money. This is one of those things, you can't put a dollar value on it. It's a quality of life issue. And, do we not want to have parks? That's an important thing for a lot of people that are looking at our community, and also for the residents that are already here. I think parks are important. Maybe we go through phases. When we have children, parks are really important, and the kids get older and we kind of get busy with life. And then maybe you get to the point where you have grandchildren, and then you say, wow, these are really pretty important features. They are important features in our community. And it's a big chunk of money. There's no question about it. But I'm going to be supportive of the park plan and what we want to come up with. But I do have a question. I pulled one section of the 10-year capital improvement thing and looking at Rice Park. That came out of the park plan. That was estimated at that time as at $516,000. Does that number ring a bell to you?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, but it's substantially less, $200,000 less.
Yes. When you look at what is proposed in this project, the demolition of some of the existing items and the development of a three-season shelter and a splash pad have degrees of flexibility on them on how big of the shelter will be and what the size of the splash pad would be. We took in this number what was, I think what was given to us in estimates as a reasonable dollar amount for these amenities to be created. And I think that much of what we had accomplished in the park plan, the engineering and contingency funds with these projects are probably a little bit higher because you're talking about a structure and you're talking about a splash pad that comes with unknowns with water sources and things like that. So I think you're seeing a little bit more due to what we would say would be contingent cost.
Okay. You know, it's unfortunate. This is something that we probably should have discussed at some sort of a retreat, because we haven't had a chance to flush this out at all, really. No, there's some light discussions that we've had, but we need to move this capital improvement plan forward. Further discussion. Councilmember Plowman, then Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Steve, for the further information. First of all, to be clear, I'm very pro parks and development, and I believe that those are, just as the chair said, they're quality of life issues for our community. They can be seen as investment opportunities in our community. These are the things that people source out and people look at, not only when they're living here, but when they're looking to live here, and that's got to be important to us. My only area of concern within the entire scope of the plan, and after hearing what we have the past few weeks about park equipment and whatnot, I just feel like this particular expenditure is a rather large chunk all at once, and are we really maximizing our dollar benefit? And I guess I feel like, you know, this is going into one kind of major big improvement in one very focused area of town, and I see a lot of other parks, you know, particularly around Ward 1, because that's where I, you know, ride bike and whatnot and go with my kids, but we go other places too. And I wonder if maybe there wasn't, I hate to say a better way, because I don't have the best way, and we have paid experts to figure this out, but if there wasn't some way to leverage our dollars to go just a little bit further each time that we're making a step in this direction, maybe a little bit more incremental, maybe not so pointed and substantial at one time, I guess, if that makes any kind of sense. And I don't know if there's opportunity to retool that focus at all right now.
Steve, you want to have a comment? I have an idea.
We all received the park plan, so in it is quite a holistic approach to the park system. This was the recommendation of the firm that we hired in conjunction with staff's input and community input that we sought and received as well for this whole plan. Our thoughts with doing Rice Park was this plan was grandiose. It's got some great things in it, and this would take care of Rice Park's enhancement. The other thought process was just what you talked about, Member Plowman, that we could take this same dollar amount and spread it to multiple parks. But in this case, it was our decision to try to get Rice Park done because we see that as a focal point of our community. And obviously, this is a council decision, that if we decided to go in another direction and you direct staff to do something different, that's exactly what we do.
Okay.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes. You made remark you've got some estimates for these costs. What was the source of those estimates?
The vendor that we use for this service has done these systems in the last few years, so these are the numbers that we're using is through SRF.
They give us some written documentation on that, or?
Just what's in the park plan, and then what we have talked about verbally since we chose to start with the Rice Park.
What, with regards to this splash pad, what's the targeted age group for that?
I would think a splash pad is good for you and I if it's 100 degrees, but I think typically you're going to be looking at a crowd of 2-year-olds to 13, 14-year-olds. And 13, 14 might be a little bit high unless it is that really hot day, but as I was in St. Cloud and sitting in a park next to one of these amenities, it was that age group, and it was a busy place on a hot day.
That was in St. Cloud?
Yes.
Okay. And you know of any other communities that have this, that are close by?
I think the St. Cloud area, so the surrounding communities of St. Cloud have these as well. I do not know of any of the small west central Minnesota towns that have this amenity.
Do we have any idea what the ongoing, regular maintenance for this kind of a facility would be?
We haven't researched that recently. I believe that when we initially talked about a splash park in lieu of the wading pool, when that was going down about 5 or 6 years ago, I believe at that point the utility cost of which you would have to run this facility between electricity and water was about the same dollar amount we were spending on guards and the chemicals for the wading pool at that point. But I don't have that number right in front of me.
Well, I mean, I would assume this facility requires some kind of winterization and.
Absolutely.
And then a startup in the spring when when it can be used in the summertime.
Correct.
Is that it?
Well, I'm just kind of looking at my notes here. Oh, yeah, the other thing I had a question on, the figures we had for community input on this were kind of on the light side, I thought, if my recollection's correct. They were done online, I believe.
The community input?
Yes.
There were places to provide input online, but we also held 4 sessions for the public to attend. And I believe the attendance was anywhere from, the light side was in that 18 to 20 range to, I think there were 40 plus at a couple of the events.
Yeah, I attended one of the main ones myself, but I mean, I think a lot of people just came to look too, so I mean, you're just curious. But in other words, my question would be, for this kind of money, if we build it, will they come? That's
Fair question.
One of my questions. Thank you.
I have a thought, and I'll get to you.
Go ahead.
Would we be smarter to move this along, to amend the motion to just say, we're going to put in X number of dollars for the park plan for 2016, and let us have some further discussions? I mean, this is something this is big. This is important. And again, I'm totally supportive, but I feel maybe the council hasn't had enough time to really digest it and talk about it. So if that's a way to move it along, I would be, I'd entertain a motion that way, but let's finish the discussion. Go ahead, Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, it's $700,000. I believe we could probably put a roof over that whole block for $700,000 and add some amenities. I mean, this is a lot of money for one park. The Splash Park, we have an aquatic facility in southwest Wilmer that's been used quite a bit, and I think we should keep all aquatic facility at one place. I know they're doing it down in the metro area. They're leaning toward one big park in the middle of cities, and they're having everything there so that everybody comes in. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot of interaction. And that's the idea of it, besides entertaining your kids and grandkids. But $706,000 for one park, folks, that's, you could probably buy 7 Cadillacs and have people bus kids over there for that amount of money in the state that it's in. We have a slug of parks, and we're known for that in Willmar. A lot of parks, a lot of facilities, and the majority of them get used. I say fix up what's there, like we were presented with at the council meeting on the park equipment, and the people will still use it. But $700,000, I can't justify that to people in my ward to spend that. That park plan, if I'm not mistaken, was a little over $20 million. Maybe it was 22, and it was supposedly done in, was it 10 years? Do I remember? It was 10 years?
They created a 10-year CIP for it, but I don't know that everything inside that park plan was anticipated to be done in 10 years' time.
That's $2 million a year. And we got facilities that we need to look at. They're going to need roofs and air conditioning and siding and painting, and we're not going anywhere with that. We're being surprised. The fire department, get the new roof on it. It's leaking, and man, that shouldn't happen. Public Works needs a roof. Let's look at our facilities presently and spend this money a lot more wiser. I cannot support $700,000 for one park. I've had calls on this from my residents and residents out of my ward and asking what this is, this amount of money. It seems horrendous. And even to spend $50,000 there, to me, sounds like a lot of money. I mean, that's a lot of change that could be helped to fix up our other facilities. And I agree with you, Dennis, that we probably should sit back and look at this. I don't know if we need to approve it for a budget right now, but we need to talk about this at length, because I voted to accept that park plan strictly because they needed it to get grants, and we told we're going to go out and get some grants, and now we see this $700,000, and I can't support it. I can't.
Councilmember Nelson?
I worked on the park plan for the entire time that it was being worked on, and so I do believe that there is a great need in this community to update our parks. I think it does, as Councilmember Plowman said, affect what people look at when they choose to come here. I think we are very far behind. I think we have to start somewhere, and I think this is a good place to start. It was recommended throughout the plan. The Community Ed and Rec Board has reviewed it. There is a group working on parks, looking and waiting to see what the city is going to be willing to do to start the investment in the parks to update them. How we move forward, I think we just have to make a commitment to this. We are behind. We have made an additional commitment to the streets. This speaks very clearly, I think, what I have heard loud and clear from people who have attended those meetings, people who are in my ward, people who are in the city, is that we are past the time of updating. I would encourage us to be positive about the future of this community. We could stay as it is. I think we want to grow this community. I think people will come as we start to evolve the services and the parks. And I think this is a first step, and I would ask for our commitment to move these parks along. How we do it, I'm open to some suggestions. I think there is a commitment from people working on that committee to expand the committee to include if we need further council interaction, but I think not to put money in the budget this year would be a major mistake. We're behind. We need to remove that pool. We need to take steps to move forward, and so I would encourage us to do that.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I've received calls from people that live around there, and they'd love to see the tennis courts and the basketball courts removed. And as long as you're doing that, you might as well get rid of the wading pool too. 'Cause Rice Park is unique, and I grew up there playing back in the 60s. And my concern is there's no parking there. And there's not that many little kids that live in that area anymore. So they're going to have to be driven there. So I would prefer to move it to a regional park where you can get some funds to help cost share. And the splash park, how big would it exactly be? It's going to be bigger than the wading pool.
The one that was proposed in the park plan is 8,600 square feet.
Okay, so concerts in the park, is that going to be affected then?
Would not be affected by what we would do with this project, given all the green space that is existing at Rice Park. Another component of the park plan is obviously a amphitheater type concept that would be proposed for Robbins Island in the future, but the concerts in the park that currently take place at Rice Park, we define a location for one summer as this project was going to happen next year, and then relocate them back in 2017 at this park.
Okay, and then I've asked many times, the J.C.'s put in the wading pool. Has anyone ever contacted them or any other service group that would like to go in on this deal? Have naming rights, or?
We have been in communication with service clubs about park projects, and I think they're in the same place that we are, waiting for some decisions to be made about investing in our park systems. Currently, there's two Rotary clubs in this community that have discussed potentially partnering on some projects. The Lions Club is obviously going to help with the Lions Park and the dog park. The J.C.'s I have not had any communications with recently, but when we were going through the process of shutting down the wading pool, we had communications with that current group of J.C.'s. So,
And they didn't
as they weren't going to help to the effect of trying to get that operational again, because that dollar amount was pretty steep for what you were going to have. You were still going to have a 50-plus-year-old facility there. So those conversations are taking place.
Councilmember Nelson, Plowman, and then Amon.
I was just going to comment on the groups being willing to do fundraising. I think there are possibilities there, but the city has to make a commitment to be willing to move this park plan forward. You can't ask the community to raise $706,000 every year. They might be willing to raise some funds to leverage the $706,000, but I would agree that there are a lot of them waiting to see, are we going to make an investment into this community? I think there's a lot of possibilities out there for us, and I do think as we hope to grow this community and expand, that our parks are critical. We are behind. And the action we just took 2 weeks ago puts us further behind. It makes us aware of the fact that we have not invested in this community.
Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's apparent that there's some differing opinion when it comes to the direction that we should go in terms of the park plan. But I personally believe that it's important to begin the ball rolling in that direction, because I don't think, well, I'll speak for myself, I don't intend on doing nothing. I intend on, we pushed the parks plan to this point, and I think we should get the ball rolling in that direction. But because we can't necessarily agree what direction that is, maybe the chair would entertain an amendment to the motion, and I would present that funding the leisure services, parking and rec with $706,000 to be determined on which projects would take place, to be determined at a later date.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, I just wanted clarification. I think we have to be careful that we're not funding leisure services, but that we are funding the physical parks. I think you said
Yes.
leisure services, but
Yeah, friendly amendment. That's a friendly amendment. But we would have to vote on that.
That's
Well, no, they can, I mean, if that's a clarification of the motion, the motioner can make that,
Yes, I would accept that.
Okay, but we have to vote on that motion. So,
the amendment.
I'm sorry, the amendment, yes, the amendment to the motion, and which I think makes a lot of sense. That would dedicate $706,000 to park development with, I think what Councilmember Plowman is saying, with details to come after the city council has set some guidelines and parameters. So you don't have to do 14 different iterations. You know, we need to kind of figure out what we need and what we want. Is that?
Yeah, my intent is to get the funding in place, get the ball rolling so that we know seriously we're moving in a direction, but we can come to a better consensus on what direction that would be rather than saying all or nothing right now.
Okay. Councilmember Rahman.
Thank you. A lot of discussion. I had a long list here of things to bring up regarding this issue, and a lot of them have been discussed, so I guess we're kind of all on the same track. I support the idea of maintaining our parks, but, you know, along with a large expenditure like this, we've had the park plan, but if someone's going to come to a group like us and ask for money to put in a facility, a splash park, for example, or Rice Park, wouldn't, along with that information, should be included to state what the annual operational costs are going to be? We don't have that. We don't have the use of life cycle of that facility, how long it's going to last. Additional staffing costs have not been included. No information has been given to us on that, so there may be additional staffing costs. Maintenance costs. Traffic issue, parking has not been addressed. The long-term financial commitment that we're making on this isn't just what we're doing now to allocate $700,000 into the park system. It's what's going to give us a return on investment, what's going to be our best value for that dollar. None of this information has been presented. In fact, I'm kind of embarrassed. How can we even make a decision on this? We're just throwing numbers out and taking throwing a dart at a dartboard. And I don't mean to demean the council. It's just hard for me to make a decision not based on the information. And then we look at priorities and qualities of life. In the years I've been in this, the last 7 years been on the council, we've talked about the downtown plan. We had a downtown plan that was going to cost us X amount of dollars. And we paid money for the downtown plan. We had a big community involvement on it, and now it's sitting on the shelf. We also had Bar Engineering come up with a huge, thick pamphlet and one CD on what we're going to do to solve our flooding issues in our community. The maintenance of buildings, leaky roofs, streets, you know, the same things. You know, but we were going to develop a plan that was going to take us to the next mandates, whether it be the salt desaltification at wastewater treatment plant and all these issues. And we still have not solved the issues of poor drainage and the flooding in our community. We're talking about building a new splash park when we don't know the costs. We don't know the long-term impact. But in the last few years, we have done a few things. And Steve, good job. You guys have added a dog park, and the archery range is open. So we have something for our people to do in this community. And that was not an a large additional expense to our budget. But right now, can we afford it? No. I don't think we can. We don't have the information. To even throw out this number and put it in the budget, I think is not, I can't make a decision on something like this. And I'm going to vote against the motion and the funding until some information is brought back on it. It's a long-term indebtedness that's going to kill us, folks. And we're seeing that in our streets. Every mile we build, we have to maintain. It adds to the cost of the budget. I'm sorry. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think it just really points to the fact that we need to talk about this, but I just firmly agree that we need to put a placeholder in there somehow, we need to show the community that we have taken their input and are trying to move it ahead. You know, it could be a 20-year project, but let's decide if we want to do that or not. There's a motion on the floor.
Mr. Anderson, Mr. Chairman, can I just make one comment? And Steve might have this. It might help in the decision-making process. Do we know how much we just voted to get rid of all the unsafe equipment? What is the replacement cost going to be to replace that equipment? Do we have that number in front of us?
Chair Anderson and Member Amon, no, we do not, because that equipment would not be replaced in the fashion that we're taking out. So if we're going to add any new equipment to those systems, then we will be exploring different pieces of equipment. So we have not, that's a report that was given to us from a safety factor, and we have not determined any replacement for that stuff. Those are items that we're just going to get out of the system.
Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to reiterate what Councilmember Amon said, and that's, we can't afford it, folks. Everything that we've been presented so far, what I can see here, there's been an explanation of what this money is buying. $706,000, all I've heard is it's buying a redo of the park and a splash pad, and I don't know what else. And I think you're absolutely correct. We need to see numbers. We're taking the taxpayer dollars here and spending it. And we need to see, you know, exactly where those things are going. I mean, line item by line item, $706,000, that's a lot of money. We can't afford it as a community. This country as a whole is going broke. Mr. Dock kept telling us over and over and again, and I'll say the same thing. We are going broke, and we have many other things we need to fix in this city. And we've been told a few months ago that we're going to spend $20 million at the waste treatment plant. That's going to come out of taxpayers' dollars. It's probably going to be from revenue generated from fees from them, but it's a lot of money. And we have to be thinking about, you know, we got a lot of kids in this town. Parks are very important. We also have many more retired people in this, people on fixed incomes. And we need to think about them also. I mean, I keep saying it. I'm here to represent the thousands of people in Ward 2 and the city in general. And they aren't here at this meeting discussing, you know, what we can spend and what we can't spend. So I'm here representing them, and I'm saying we can't afford this.
Okay. I hear you. I don't necessarily agree with everything that you've said, but I think it's time that we vote on the amendment that Councilmember Plowman put forward, and that would be to dedicate $706,000 to park development with details to come later. All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Oh, Kevin, I think this is too important to, I think it was 4-3 in favor, but I don't know. So would you please do a roll call?
Councilmember Johnson.
No.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Amon.
No.
Christensen.
No.
Plowman.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
It is 4-3.
Okay, that passes. That was a really good discussion, and I think it points out a lot of things. We're going to move forward.
Just,
Wait a minute, we're going to move forward.
yeah, I wasn't speaking about the park plan. It's 7:30, I'm just wondering if we can take a 5-minute break, if we're going to continue.
That's probably a good idea. We'll take 5 minutes.
To add to that, I was thinking about a motion to recess to another date.
Yes. That's up to
Well,
you.
we can consider that when we come back from the 5-minute break.
Okay, yeah, take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, let's go.
When, let's reconvene.
Yeah, battery.
Here's one dilemma for us to think about. We have to be done at 8 o'clock because we're running out of tape. So, We will be done by 8 o'clock. Am I hearing that we want to keep going, or am I hearing go home?
Keep going.
Let's roll.
Okay, all right. Well, welcome back.
Thank you. Nice
We're
break.
reconvened. Civic Center.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, the first item at the Civic Center is the Cedar Shake replacement. If you recall, you would have seen this in, I think it was in the 2014 CIP. It was underestimated at this point. We had a contractor out at the site this summer, actually spring, when we submitted this, and the $95,000 was a replacement number for the Cedar Shake area of that, not necessarily replacing it with Cedar Shake, but replacing that so we can get rid of the water infiltration that's taken place along that line.
Okay, I'll introduce the Cedar Shake replacement, the amount of $95,000.
Second.
I'll second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? That passes.
Next item on the list is also at the Civic Center. It's an reverse osmosis water system. What that would allow us to do is to have better ice. I better make sure I look at my items here. Advantages: keep ice temperature in check or at a warmer temperature, thus reducing our energy costs. You'll have clearer ice, and you'll be able to have thinner ice because the ice that will be in place will be harder. So what it does is take the minerals out of the water and allow us to have better ice on the facility.
Okay, I'll introduce the reverse osmosis water system at the Civic Center in the amount of $23,000.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Now we're rolling.
Okay, now we are rolling.
Next item on our list is at the Aquatic Center. We've got a pool heater requested. Justin's done a wonderful job keeping our pool heater operational. The last 2 summers, we've had some incidents with it that it has not maintained its operations. In conjunction with conversations with the pool operator that Justin uses at that facility, the useful life of pool heaters are anywhere from that 10 to 15 years. We've just gone through our 11th year at the Aquatic Center. It's our recommendation to replace the pool heater at a cost of $40,000.
I'll move the recommendation to replace the pool heater at the Aquatic Center in the amount of $40,000.
Second.
Discussion? Councilmember Ahman.
I'd like to amend the motion to, that the $40,000 be placed and be used out of the money allocated previously for the budget allocated to the Park Department for the improvements of the park.
I'll second that for discussion. Restate it. Qualify that?
What I mean by...
Here's,
Subset of the 706.
That's, my intention is to take that $706,000 we just approved on a 4-3 vote earlier. Part of that $706,000, this $40,000 would come out of that fund.
okay, discussion on the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That passes.
I don't think so.
The amendment passed,
Oh, okay.
which was to take the $40,000 out of that and put...
Roll call. Of course, for a roll call.
Okay. Read, the motion is to, you want to,
The motion would make the $40,000 heater a subset of the 706
Correct.
previously.
Correct.
Councilmember Fagerly.
No.
Nelson.
No.
Ahman.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Bauman.
No.
Anderson.
no.
Johnson.
Aye.
Well,
4, so it does not.
I miscalled on that one. Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. All right, so now any further discussion on the pool heater itself?
There you go.
All right, Councilmember Fagerly.
Is this gas, electric, or is there a solar one yet?
I think the one that's priced out is a natural gas. Yep.
No solar yet.
I haven't had Justin tell me that, but we could certainly research it, but.
Okay. All in favor of the pool heater in the amount of $40,000, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes. Auditorium.
I'll go for that. Sean and I had worked on this a while back, but the auditorium, as we've done the enhancements of that facility, the last two items, I shouldn't say the last two items, but two other items on the list that we had discussed trying to get accomplished as we reopen that facility was the lighting and changing out the lighting, and even more important you want to go one at a time, don't you? So the lighting was for $20,000, and those were costs that Sean and staff received.
I'll introduce a motion to approve the lighting in the auditorium in the amount of $20,000.
Second.
Did I hear a second? Okay, thank you. Discussion. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is that LED again we're looking at?
Yeah, I just got the okay from Sean that yes.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
And I think for us to do the lighting project, the next one's as important if we're going to go up there. Some of the problems we've had with changing the current lighting is the ceiling and how deteriorated the ceiling has gotten to be. We have received a quote for $110,000 to replace the ceiling in that facility.
I'll move the recommendation to improve the ceiling in the auditorium in the amount of $110,000. Discussion. Or second?
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Amon.
Is that dealing with the existing ceiling that our city crew put up to help with the reflect the heat back down, and that's underneath the purlins right now?
Mr. Christensen?
Councilmember Alman, I'm not sure of the ceiling that our city crews put up there, but what this would do is replace the entire ceiling in the gymnasium.
And if I might add, dealing with the catwalk that's above that and the fact that that's no longer usable as a way of replacing light fixtures.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I was distracted, Sean and Mr. Chairman and Council. I was thinking of the Civic Center. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I am fully aware of that. Can I comment on that, please? The catwalk, I did view that up there, is very, very, very dangerous.
Is it?
Yes. I wouldn't send anybody up there, myself personally. But.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Before we move on, I'm concerned about the fact that we have not gotten a report on the auditorium about the conditions of the heating and cooling. I don't think we've gotten a report on where we're at with the project. I believe that the air conditioning is put in next year's budget, and I'm wondering how we plan to operate it this year and why we have not had a report on the condition of the auditorium to finish up that project. I guess I have a concern that is important that we deal with that next year, or are we planning to close the auditorium for next year when we can't be in it because of the heat? So two parts. I'd like to hear a report on what happened. Is there anything that was done wrong with the heating and cooling? Who's accountable for why the air conditioning wasn't in there, and why aren't we dealing with it?
That's appropriate, and I think that will go to Public Works Safety on one of your most recent upcoming agendas.
Councilmember, is there still an opportunity then to come back if we need to make some additions to?
You can try.
Okay, thank you.
Waste treatment program, 19 minutes or less, Sean.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll do my best. And I will preface these items with, if we've got questions, I've got members of the wastewater treatment here that can probably know more about it than I do, and we can get the questions answered. So going down your list here, the software and hardware, I'll talk about them together first, Mr. Chair, if I may, and you can vote on them separate or however you wish to do that. This is upgrades to the existing software system we have for our SCADA system, which controls and monitors and reports on every lift station we have in town, as well as the flows in and out of the wastewater treatment facility. And so this particular software and hardware is an upgrade of what we have going on now, just to maintain that system.
Okay, I'll introduce approval of the computer software, or the upgrades, in the amount of $146,000.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Computer hardware.
Okay, hardware, yes, sir. The hardware obviously is needed to run the software.
I'll introduce approval of the computer hardware in the amount of $87,000.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The third item on your list, Phase 2 of the Westwood Court lift station. That is the design phase of that system, and it's currently being designed at the moment. So that would be designed for construction starting as early as spring of 16.
I'll introduce the Phase 2 lift station design in the amount of $950,000.
Second.
Am I to understand that's just the design? 950?
No, sir, that's just the construction.
That's the construction. Okay, then we need to correct my motion. It's for, I said design is for construction. Okay.
Do you have a second?
Yes.
Second.
Take it back.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Mr. Chairman, the next item on your list is, I believe it's 2, not 4. So it's 2, as in the notes on your agenda, raw wastewater municipal pumps. Currently having problems with these pumps, and so these new pumps would be replacement of existing pumps that are used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay, I'll introduce the replacement of the muni pumps in the amount of $100,000.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item on your list, street sewer replacement. That is budgeted money that we put in every year to add to the street replacements that we do on our street improvement plan that we approved earlier.
I'll introduce the street sewer replacement for new construction in the amount of $50,000.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Phase 1, Mr. Chair, of the Fairgrounds lift station is next on your list, and this would be for design of this particular lift station. As the report you heard earlier a couple months ago regarding the 4 lift stations for grant funding, or PFA funding rather, this would be the design only of the Fairgrounds lift station for 2016.
Okay, I'll introduce Phase 1 fairground lift station design in the amount of $120,000.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Mr. Chairman, the next item on your list, overlay the biosolids driveway. This is on the existing wastewater treatment site, the new site, and that's not true. The old site? New site. All right. New site, driveway area, so it's general maintenance for the pavement management of that facility.
I'll introduce overlay on the biosolid driveway, the new plant, $40,000.
Second.
Discussion? Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It isn't that old. I mean, why are we overlaying it now? I mean, is it?
Out there, though. Mr. Chairman, Councilmember Christensen, two answers, actually. This particular driveway was built in 1996, so it was there prior to the plant being there. And with a really quick 10-second plug for street maintenance, every 7 years, we need to do something with our pavement. Aye.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Mr. Chairman, the industrial stormwater permit, this is an annual permit we have to put together for the MPCA and to remain compliant with the current environmental regulations.
Okay, I'll introduce the industrial stormwater permit, expense of $20,000.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Mr. Chairman, last item on this particular list is the HVAC, heating and ventilation for the admin building. This is the new building itself. Modifications to improve the temperature and humidity performance of the lab area. Obviously, lab area requires temperature-controlled environment in order to produce quality data.
Use the HVAC admin building project, $30,000. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Ahman.
Is that putting a zone control in that area with the HVAC system?
Why don't you come on up here, please?
Completely separate system. Completely separate.
Since the HVAC system was put in the new administration building, certain things maybe weren't paid total attention. The HVAC system itself was meant for the entire building, and the laboratory, a smaller portion of that building, has more stringent requirements for humidity and temperature control that somehow didn't get looked at as well as it probably should have. And so there's been some modifications to try to enhance the lab with the humidity control and temperature. And with that big a system, when certain temperature changes happens and whatever, the lab has excessive temperature swings and dips, and humidity is a problem. And the lab is experiencing some issues when they do some of their testing, that their test equipment doesn't work properly when the humidity and temp is not maintained. So we've entertained some quotes from Chapel. One was to redo a lot of the system, which was considerably more money. The other quote that we got was maybe to treat the lab a little bit more separate and put in a system more geared just to controlling the lab, and that was in the $30,000 range. So that's where we're at.
Does that answer your question, Councilmember Ahman?
Somewhat. Did Chapel give you a price on a zone control for that area? Is that what the $30,000 is for? Or
Actually, pretty much a separate air handler and system for the lab. Part of the requirements for the admin building is a certain amount of air exchanges. The CFM into the building is quite large. And so we're trying to maintain all that CFM coming into the building, and that's why this small room is having such an issue. So it's really trying to separate the lab away from the rest of the building.
So there'll be a combination heat pump?
There'll be a new air,
conditioner.
new air handler and
Probably looking
everything
at
specific for
A mini
lab.
split system just for that area.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When you go out to have this project completed, do you get more than one bid, or you just?
Oh, yes, we would. Because right now it's in a conceptual.
Right, I understand.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, welcome.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? That passes. Thanks. Sean, I think you're done.
I think that's the list for you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, and I want to say thanks to the committee. Now, Steve has been tallying as we go along, and we have made cuts in the amount of,
You've made cuts in the amount of $191,500, which would be $126,500 in the airport, $35,000 at the fire, $30,000 in IT, and then the vehicle would be on top of that. If you want that included, it would be an additional $250,000,
okay,
for a grand total of $441,500.
all right. Now, go ahead, Councilmember Ahman.
I know there's been requests, and the mayor asked us to put in requests for certain issues from each one of the council people here on things that they felt they would like to have included in the budget. I did not request anything, but I'm making a request here, and it may be a little facetious, but I thought I'd add a little humor to this. For 16 years, I looked up at the ceiling, and I see the stains in the ceiling. Do you think we could afford some paint in our budget, now that we've saved some money, to repaint the ceiling so when people come here, it looks a little better than it does right now?
Duly noted, and staff will make the appropriate contacts. All right, I just want to say thanks for staff that's been here and for the council doing this. It's different than what we've done in the past, and we may not have to do it again, but thank you for everyone. And at the chair's discretion, I'm going to drop the last item on our agenda and put it on the September 28th. I think we're more than done. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you all.